Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Summer, and today we're going to be finally going over the third book in Nora Roberts' The Lost Bride Trilogy, titled The Seven Rings. Sorry this is so late. I had a perfect plan. I had a perfect, beautiful plan laid out for the year, for my YouTube release schedule, but one thing I had not really factored in, which I should have factored in because I made this plan well after I was engaged, was the amount of time it takes to plan a wedding. So pretty much what happened was my fiance and I, we've known each other for 4 years. We've been very good friends. So when we started dating, things went pretty fast, and I was engaged by December. And because he wanted to get married on his grandma's birthday, which is very sweet because they were close when she was alive, we have decided to get married in April because neither one of us wanted a long engagement, and April is when his grandma's birthday was. So we are planning a wedding in 5 months, and honestly, it is going really well. We have had the venue, caterer, and my dress locked down since December 21st. Now we're just in the process of making sure the bridesmaids have ordered all their dresses, which most of my friends have. The groomsmen are getting their suits. We're getting all our RSVPs in. The invitations are sent out. We have our registry made. We have our centerpieces half built. We've just got a couple things we're working on there, but everything is coming along really nicely. But wedding planning takes up a good amount of time, as does doing actual work that pays me money that has to be done at specified times. So, my job and my freelance work, and then working out because one wants to be healthy. One is committed to health, right? And part of that is making sure you get enough sleep, and you're supposed to get 7 hours of sleep. How am I supposed to get everything done and do 7 hours of sleep? But I'm trying because now me and my fiance, we work out in a gym, and we're up in the morning by 6 a.m. and we're in the gym and we're working out. And that means that I'm tired at 10. And I used to be able to stay up for 41 straight hours. You remember my Phantom of the Opera video, but suddenly now I'm sleepy at 10 o'clock. But I've got to push through. Because on top of that, I'm also packing up my entire apartment so I can slowly move it over to his house because we're moving into his house together as a married couple once we're married. And so unfortunately, talking about Nora Roberts, The Seven Rings has fallen to the wayside. I was supposed to release this video on January 10th if I was going to follow my perfect schedule. And then I was supposed to release my Phantom of the Opera 1989 video last Friday if I had followed my perfect schedule. I am now so many videos behind, but I shall finish this. Partly because it's apropos that I, a bride, am talking about the Lost Bride Trilogy. So it fits. It's on theme. It's within the zeitgeist of my personal life. Okay? That was a lot. But we're going to keep going because I've been working on this video for a really long time. I thought I was going to try a new, exciting way of doing a video. I was going to try and do a reading vlog because I love watching people do reading vlogs where they kind of check in as they're reading. They do little updates. It pops back and forth between them actually reading the book and them sitting in their normal desk talking back and forth with a mic like I'm doing now. And I was like, that should be so super quick and easy to edit. And it wasn't, because my original plan was that I was going to do a bunch of check-ins as I read the book, and then I was just going to drop those into the timeline. I was going to watch them, and if I realized that I was missing any context, I would pop in here, desk Summer, with my microphone to give a little context and then piece back out to let reading Summer take over. But the problem with that is I'm very verbose and I cannot make my mouth stop talking. And so every time I try and do a little update, it's 13 to 30 minutes of me rambling. Particularly, I keep rambling over the same few points, my major issues with the Lost Bride Trilogy. And so I'm trying to figure out how to condense that all. And part of me thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to make myself rant about this for 30 minutes, and I'm just going to put that. And if I have any significant clips that matter in my reading updates, I'll just drop those in at key points. But then I said, oh, Summer, you're going to make a little list, okay? You're going to make a little checklist because you love checklists, and you're going to just burn through those plot points and then you'll be done, and then that will help you. Except I started writing the checklist, and my checklist is how many pages? 4 pages long now, and that basically just gets us caught up to what happened in the first 2 books. I can't care about that right now, so I'm thinking this is just going to be full throttle. I'm going to be talking real fast, and I'm just going to be going as quick as I can, okay? Because I am in a car driving 80 million miles an hour with my head out the window, and everything is due and it's due right now. And this is one of those things because I love making my YouTube videos and I love talking about books and stuff, and I haven't had the time to do it, and it's been weighing on me. My soul yearns to create a video about Nora Roberts' Lost Bride Trilogy, The Seven Rings, a third book in it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to read through my primer so that we can pick up where we left off with books 1 and 2, The Inheritance and The Mirror, and then we will dive into The Seven Rings with all the context we need to go forward, educated and excited for the road ahead. I still have not decided if I'm just going to cut straight to me reading the book and just keep going as I have been going, or if I'm going to try and power through and do an entire ramble tonight. But either way, welcome back to my channel. My name is Summer, and today we're talking about the Lost Bride Trilogy, The Seven Rings. I don't know why that alarm's going off. Okay. Okay, so, like I said, The Seven Rings is the third and final book in the Lost Bride Trilogy, and the Lost Bride Trilogy focuses on Sonya McTavish, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer who was cheated on by her fiance with her cousin Tracy, who is her Aunt Summer's daughter, and Aunt Summer is the sister of her mom, Winter. So, her mom's name is Winter, her aunt's name is Summer, my name is Summer, and I'll tell you right now, no daughter of mine is going to cheat on her cousin, is going to be the other woman with her cousin's fiance. No. So there's that. That's how the whole series begins. So in the wake of this adultery, Sonya is forced to leave the graphic design job where she works with her horrible cheating fiance, Brandon. Her design job loves her, okay? They love her, but they can't force Brandon to leave. And Brandon is bad-mouthing her to everybody, and he's making it a really toxic work environment. So she's like, guys, I love you, but I have to find a new path. And they're like, Sonya, we love you too. Why don't you take this client that you started because we love you and we want you to do well? Take baby mine, your client that you started, and know that we're always supporting you and we're always behind you and we love you. And she's like, and I love you. And then they leave, right? So she starts Visual Arts by Sonya or something like that. She starts a freelance graphic design business and she just kills it. She finds new clients. She makes websites. She makes social media posts. She does everything that I, also a freelance graphic designer, do when I'm not making YouTube videos. But she doesn't make YouTube videos, okay? That's something that she does not do. And as she's building this new life for herself, a man knocks on her door. And what does this man tell her? He tells her that she's inherited a giant mansion in Maine from her dead uncle, who was her dad's secret twin brother. And you would think that this discovery would cause a lot of discord about uprooting her life, and it would cause a lot of worries and anxiety over financial duress from the taxes and maintenance of having, suddenly coming into a huge property, or even jealousy amongst other family members who could have inherited and spent more time with the deceased, and that these seeds of discontent and tension and just, icky, crunchy feelings would breed and grow bigger during her time spent in a haunted mansion, and all of this tension would turn into real fear as she discovers all these ghosts in this haunted house, and there would be a lot of, icky, crunchy moments and feeling like someone's standing over your shoulder watching you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a haunted house. You'd be wrong. You'd be wrong if you thought this haunted house book was going to have any tension at all. This haunted house trilogy actually would have any tension at all. You'd be wrong. Because aside from needing a new hairstylist, which is an issue that is brought up in book 1, mentioned several times throughout book 1, mentioned several times in book 2 until it is finally resolved, I think on like page 164 or something like that, Sonya takes to owning a beautiful Victorian mansion in a coastal town in Maine exceedingly well. Now, there's some talk at the beginning about her being worried about moving into a new place, about her being like, oh, I'm all alone out here. Is this going to be okay? But I assure you that is done away with very quickly, and there's no real homesickness or real growing pains because Sonya truly feels like she's found where she belongs. So don't worry, There's no tension there. In terms of financial duress, along with inheriting a good chunk of money that makes her independently wealthy, her dead twin uncle dad's brother has set up specific accounts for both property taxes and property maintenance. So roof caves in, she's covered. Tax man comes a knocking, she's covered. She's now independently wealthy. She owns beautiful property, coastal property, and not just, it's a historical mansion. She owns a beautiful historical coastal mansion. And she has no financial worries, but still she works. Still she does her graphic design because that's her passion. Her father was an artist, a painter, and she can paint, okay? She can paint too, but painting's not her passion. Graphic design is her passion. And that is yet again a place where Sonya McTavish, 32-year-old freelance graphic designer, and I differ. I am now a 33-year-old freelance graphic designer, and graphic design, though being my skill set, is not my passion. My passion lies more in writing and in video editing and creating YouTube videos and making story and telling stories. That's where my passion lies. Graphic design is my skill set. Creating is my passion. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Have I been pretentious enough for you today? Have I made that clear? All right. I am an artiste. I am an artiste, and I'm also against AI. All right. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Guys, the vibe is odd. The feeling is strange in this video. I am kind of panicking because I really want to get this video done, so I'm trying to talk really fast, and it's making me feel antsy. I'm feeling a little anxious, and I think I should keep that energy going so that I could just power through this. So, all right, so finally, and the jealousy amongst other family. No one in the family really cares about or wants Poole Manor, colloquially known as Lost Bride Manor, because the rest of the family only really cares about getting shares in the family shipping business, which they get. The whole rest of the family, her deceased uncle has divvied up all the shares between them and given Sonya like one tiny little share. And nobody cares about one tiny little share or the haunted mansion on the hill. So they're like, hey, a new cousin. We got all the money and stuff that we wanted, so we're totally fine and we're ready to welcome you. Welcome to Poole's Bay. Welcome to Poole's Bay, Maine. We're so happy somebody's living in that house, and we're so happy that it's not us. It's so lovely to meet you, Sonya McTavish, 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. So, the reason nobody wants Lost Bride Manor, the name, I think, if you're listening with your keen listening ears, might have tipped you off, is because once a generation, for the past 200 years, a bride will die in the house, a Poole bride specifically, either on her wedding day or the day she first steps into the mansion. Why does this happen? This happens because an evil witch woman named Hester Dobbs really wanted to become mistress of Poole Manor, and she tried to magically seduce the heir, but when that did not work because his love for his future bride was too pure, she killed his bride, Astrid, on her wedding day and stole her wedding ring. So she had become Astrid Poole, new mistress of Poole Manor. Boom, dead, first wedding ring, stolen. Okay. Later, either that evening or like that week or something, Hester Dobbs, evil witch woman, threw herself off of a nearby seawall at 3 a.m. to bind the house under her curse, and she now haunts the gold room, and she kills Poole brides, either Poole daughters who are getting married or women who are marrying into the family and becoming Pooles, and then once she kills them, she steals their wedding rings. This really, why she does it, we don't quite know yet, but we do discover it at the end of this book. I can tell you now because I finished it. But that's a secret that I will not be revealing quite yet. And then she steals their wedding rings. So the house is now super haunted, as many who die within its walls find themselves trapped under this same curse. This includes Colin Poole, the secret twin of Sonya's dead dad. Clover Poole, the hippie mother of Sonya's dad and uncle, who got married outside of Poole Manor and then died in childbirth the night she first moved into Poole Manor. And she now moonlights as an iPhone DJ to commune with the living via song. She is a major character, and she constantly talks to Sonya via songs playing from her iPhone, her computer, her iPad. And these songs are always thematically appropriate. At one point in book 2, when they were having a very charming moment of love and friendship, she played Toby Mac's Love Is in the House, and then Sonya's boyfriend Trey came up behind her and gave her a hug and quoted the song along with it and was like, love is in the house and the house is packed, which is a lyric from Toby Mac's Love Is in the House. I just wanted to remind everybody that happened. And I love that song. I listened to it all the time when I was a child. Okay, so Eleanor is another one. She is an old servant woman and she waters all the plants so that all the plants that Sonya buys and keeps alive and has in the greenery and has in the greenhouse atrium and has outside in the yard. Eleanor takes care of those. Then there's Joseph, the old groundskeeper, and he maintains the yards and the outside plants and the wood pile so that they never have to worry about that. Then there is Mary, the young Irish maid who died of the flu, and she now keeps the house beautifully clean. All of the wood is always oiled, none of it's old or cracking. The kitchen's always clean. And sometimes they're like, Mary, let us help you out. Let us clean the dishes. Please let us help you, Mary. And then Mary will let them. But if they don't specifically request to help clean, Mary will clean everything up right away. And then there's Jack, a little ghost boy who died in the house, and he watches all of the pets. And so when they're working and they're doing their painting and their graphic design, nobody has to worry about their pets being bored or needing to go outside. And because Jack will play with them, and then he will let them outside, and then he'll play with them outside, and Jack is taking care of them. Then there are also a handful of like dead Poole husbands who died in the house. And then of course there are also the 7 brides themselves, but they do not interact with the living the way the other ghosts do. So who are the pets that I just mentioned? The pets are Yoda, Sonya's dog, Jack, Trey's dog, Mookie, Owen's dog, unless I have gotten that wrong, in which case we need to switch Mookie and Jack, and they belong to different owners. Then there's Pyewacket, Cleo's cat, that she trained to go potty outside with the dogs the literal day that she adopted her, because in Cleo's paraphrased words, she didn't want to deal with the litter box. And you know what? It works. The very first day she adopts this cat and brings it into a new home, the cat goes outside, goes potty with the dogs, and then comes back in when called. I don't know about you, I've had a few cats, and they don't do that. But even if Pyewacket is using the litter box, it's okay, because Mary, the dead Irish ghost girl, she takes care of it because she cleans everything. She just cleans everything. Who are the people that I've just mentioned, aside from Mary, who I already told you about? Well, there is Trey, Oliver Doyle III, the lawyer son of Oliver Doyle II, the lawyer who delivered the news of Sonya's inheritance. Both Oliver Doyles are the lawyer descendants of Oliver Doyle I, who is also a lawyer, and because there are 3 Oliver Doyles, they call each other Ace, Deuce, and Trey. Okay, Trey and Sonya are in love, and they have been since about the middle of book 1. Owen is Sonya's newly discovered Poole cousin and Trey's best friend, and he is now romantically involved with Cleo. And Cleo is Sonya's best friend who moved into the big rambling manor to be Sonya's roommate way back in book 1. And I'm also realizing that I wrote all of this, and I forgot to tell you that I actually have up a video on the first 2 books that's just as rambly as this. So if you want to watch that and get a little more context, feel free. I am going to continue giving you context here, though. Then there are, of course, also Sonya's mom, Winter, who pops up every now and then, Deuce's wife, who helps Sonya with photography, like the lady... There's the restaurateur who used to date Trey, but it was only very briefly, and now they're really good friends, and she shows up sometimes. There's... I already meant there's her bosses that sometimes... Oh, I forgot. There's the writers from the writer proposal. That was a big project over the course of book 1 and 2 where Sonya was up for a graphic design job against her old firm By Design. And who was heading the old firm's pitch to Ryder, this sports company? None other than her dirty, cheating, stinky boyfriend, ex-fiance, Brandon. And Brandon was... he decided to try and badmouth her to the writer people who were in charge of the writer proposal. So when Sonya went in there and knocked it out of the park, they were really already going to choose her. The only thing that was against her was that she was a single freelance graphic designer, and this was an established graphic design business. When they heard that dirty, stinky, stupid, stinky Brandon was trying to badmouth her, they were like, listen, you cannot badmouth and blackmail somebody because this is a family company. And so we will not work with you, Brandon. And then Brandon's bosses from By Design were like, hey, Brandon, you lost us a huge account. You want to know what that is? Grounds to fire you. Grounds to fire you, Brandon. And we would have done it just over you being a lying, dirty, stinky, cheating turd to Sonya. But unfortunately, that was against the law. However, the law is now on our side. So begone with you, Brandon. Begone! And so Brandon is begone. And Sonya gets the writer proposal. And By Design is totally okay with that because they're like, Sonya, remember, we love you. They actually called her and they were like, Sonya, the writer people called us and they want us to do this big account, but they specifically asked for you. And we had to tell them that you no longer work here. And we're still obviously going to do a pitch. And just so you know, we're going to do our best because we're a business and we want to make money. But we love you and we're telling you about it and we want you to do your best too. And if you get it, no hard feelings because Sonya, you're our favorite and we love you. And she's like, guys, you are my favorite and I love you too. So most of books 1 and 2 is her trying to land the writer proposal and get them as a client. And by the end of book 2, she does that. And so the writers and the writer proposal and the writer company, which is a sports company, they are also a part of it. So what's the story? Well, the story is Sonya, 32-year-old freelance graphic designer, inherits Lost Bride Manor and must live there for a certain amount of time. I think it's either 6 months or like a year and a half or maybe 3 years before she can legally refuse the inheritance. And she can like only be gone from the house for like 9 weeks at a time. Otherwise she forfeits it and she has to do a lot of legal things. I don't know. Colin Poole's will was ironclad and there was no way of getting out of it. But why would you want to get out of it if you're inheriting a giant, beautifully kept mansion in Maine? I don't know. Well, you have no financial worries. Upon moving in, she discovers that the house is haunted by several extremely friendly ghosts and the horrible spirit of Hester Dobbs, evil witch woman, whose wicked blood magic has bound the spirits of the house's dead to the manor, and who grows stronger with each bride she kills. Each night at 3 a.m., the tragedies of the house repeat themselves. Mary coughs her final breath on her sick bed in the attic. A woman weeps over an empty cradle in the nursery. A different woman plays piano in the sitting room. And Hester Dobbs throws herself off the seawall, resealing her control over the house. As Sonya comes to terms with the inhabitants of the haunted mansion, she realizes that she is the only one who can set them free. And as she and Cleo build a new life in Poole's Bay, Maine, and find love with the handsome Trey and the handsome Owen, they discover more and more secrets of the past as Sonya is visited by the brides in her dreams and then visits the brides themselves by stepping through a magic mirror that appears at key moments to allow those with Poole blood to step into the past as unseen observers in order to find the means to defeat Hester Dobbs once and for all. So it's almost like the manor itself is giving her the clues she needs to fight back against Hester Dobbs. That's the mirror. That's what happened in the second book, The Mirror, and the mirror comes into play in this book. Okay, all right, what's the next point? So, after each dream or vision of a bride, a painting of that bride pops up somewhere in the house, and these have been appearing in reverse order. So the last bride to die was Joanne, Colin Poole's wife, and her painting showed up first. Then Clover, Colin Poole's dad, she shows up, and then onward, and the only one that's missing right now, I think, is Astrid Poole. Like, I think we found all 6 bride. We are waiting for the portrait of the 7th bride, Astrid, to reveal itself. Maybe Catherine as well, but Astrid is the main one. And each of these paintings is clearly painted in the style of Sonya's deceased father or her deceased uncle. These are twins who did not know each other in life, but have remarkably similar painting styles, and it seems like over the course of their life, they visited each other in dreams and visions or by stepping through the mirror, and so their souls knew there was a twin somewhere, even if their minds did not. They were separated at birth by their paternal grandmother, who was a Poole, who somehow she walked in as a bride, but Hester Dobbs could sense that this woman was just as mean as she was. And she's like, hey, what if I didn't kill you and you just stepped your way out of the mansion, but you let me maintain my hold over it? And she's like, say no more. I'll never step foot in this house again, and you can kill whoever you want. And then they mutually part ways. The next person to die, her son's wife. That's what happened there. And then she's like, we really only need one son. We don't need a second son. So why don't we just get rid of the bonus boy? Set him out for adoption. And don't tell them. Nobody tell them. Nobody needs to know. And so that's how that all happened. And then finally, Sonya knows that once she has the 7 paintings and has witnessed the deaths of all 7 brides, she will hopefully have the information she needs to retrieve the 7 stolen rings and release the 7 brides, thereby finally freeing Poole Manor of the evil machinations of the wicked Hester Dobbs and freeing the souls trapped therein. Now, I know that sounds pretty cool, right? That's what got me to pick up The Inheritance, which was book 1 in the first place. But alas, that's not what the book is actually about. I don't know if you've picked up what I've been putting down as I've been going over this recap. These books are not about the cool ghost story. They are actually about graphic design, cooking food, and having a really nice time with your friends. I have never been so flabbergasted by a book or a trilogy of books before, because the book is obviously trying to be a haunted house story. It's trying to have an atmosphere of fear and like a scary thing going on. It's like, ooh, a wicked evil ghost witch trying to steal brides, and it's torturing the nice ghosts within, and oh, it's been happening for centuries. And like the way that it's written, the like opening preface chapter of each book kind of, it like sounds like it's trying to harken back to the opening of Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House. You know, the way that that's like, even larks and katydids are said by some to dream. Bricks lay neatly, floors are even, and whatever walks there walks alone. Whatever she says it well, Shirley Jackson. They are written, the preface of each book is written with that tone. But then you get into the actual book itself, and it reads like a Hallmark Halloween movie. And I have no issue with Hallmark Halloween. I've actually only seen one Hallmark Halloween movie, and it was fun. It was like a Hallmark Christmas movie, but set at Halloween. And that's great. That's fine. It's like there's the promise the book is making you about the actual story, and then there's the actual book that's being delivered, and they're not the same. And that makes for a frustrating reading experience, because unlike in a haunted house book, where often the ghosts and the terror is a metaphor for grief or pain or trauma, and somehow by uncovering the ghosts and solving the mysteries in the house, the characters unlock and solve the mysteries within themselves, and they find healing. And by the end, when they've freed the ghosts and they walk out into the daylight, they are changed, but somehow changed for the better, because they have grown as people, having faced head on the terrors that were against them, or the terrors that had been plaguing them, the terrors that had been haunting them. That's the word I should have said from the beginning. But this book has no friction at all. Excuse me, my love. The house is beautiful and well kept. It's not scary. The ghosts are all kind, and they like Sonya, and Sonya likes them, except of course Hester Dobbs. Trey is really nice and kind. They have very little friction. Their relationship is just pretty much smooth sailing the whole time. So like their falling in love is very much like, hey, you're cute. Hey, you're cute. We're going to have dinner, and you come over to my house sometimes to help with housework, and we like each other, and we do like each other, and your friend likes my friend, and my friend likes your friend, and now we're all friends together, and you guys go get us dinner, and we make you dinner, and we're all together, and we're all friends. Then there's the fact that nobody is mad that a virtual stranger inherited what has been part of the Poole family lineage for decades and centuries, but nobody's upset about that. Nobody cares, because that would have been a nice place for friction and tension, and like, is the thing going bump in the night actually a ghost, or is it somebody trying to scare me out of the house so that they can inherit what they think is rightfully theirs? That's not on the table. That is not an issue in this book. And there's no anxiety or stress over the new inherited financial burden, which would have added a nice layer of just like tension and worry that could have been built upon. But no worries there. So anywhere there could be tension in this story that could lead to unease, that could lead to the scary moments being effective, they are smoothed away. They're explained away. Because like I said, everybody loves each other. Everybody's proud of each other. Everybody is best friends with each other. And because we, the reader, have spent so much time reading through the day-to-day minutia of their lives, we are best friends with them too. I am best friends with them too. Sonya, Trey, Owen, and Cleo are my 4 best friends in the entire world, all right? Even more than the people I know in my real life. I'm just kidding. But like most egregious of all, this haunted house series manages to make their haunted house boring. There are scenes where blood is coming out of the walls and doors are slamming, and there is full corporeal manifestations of a woman who is dead, like wah, speaking an evil rhyme, and like slamming doors, and visions of fire that's not there, and like the doors will be slamming, and the doorbell's ringing, and it's not snowing, but when she opens the front door, all Sonya can see is a snowstorm that isn't existing. So there's like crazy stuff happening that could be scary. And yet, every single time anything remotely scary happens, it is immediately followed up by like 2 or 3 pages of the characters who just experienced that scary event talking about their emotions in the moment of the scary event, and being like, do you remember when she rang that bell? Wasn't that scary? Well, we can't let her scare us because she feeds on fear, and we can't let her feed on our fear because that only makes her stronger. So even though she might have held my hand while I was standing in the basement, and then she was next to me even though I couldn't see her, I can't let myself be scared of that, because we have to bring the love and we have to bring the light, and that's how we fight against evil, wicked witch woman Hester Dobbs. So you've got like immediately, the moment ends and then the whole group of people retires to the kitchen where they make themselves a nice meal and talk about how scared they were, but how scared they won't allow themselves to be, so that they can stand firm against Hester Dobbs. And so that saps all of the tension away. And then, just in case there was any tension left, we are treated to, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 10 pages of them living their regular lives. So it's Sonya doing graphic design work and Cleo painting. And then maybe they'll all go for a sail. And then the boys will come over and they'll have dinner. And then maybe if they're lucky, they'll go out to eat at a nice restaurant and they talk about how much they like each other. And then at 3 a.m. the clock will ring and they'll hear the piano from the other room, or they'll wake up and they'll see Hester Dobbs throw herself off of the seawall again. But those things, like watching a ghost woman throw herself repeatedly from a seawall every day at 3 a.m., a piano playing when nobody's sitting at it, doors slamming back and forth. They are mentioned happening so many times with no actual like build up that it becomes like trite. It becomes like a boring repeated motif where it's like Sonya sat at her desk and everybody, like, the doors banged and she ignored it. Like, that's something that you see a lot, especially in books in book 3. And like the way that these 8 to 10 pages of them living their normal life is written is that most of them is of Sonya doing freelance graphic design work so detailed that like I said, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer when I started this journey, who is now a 33-year-old freelance graphic designer, I feel like I should be clocked in on Clockify and getting paid, since I'm basically also doing that freelance graphic design with her. I feel like I am owed recompense for the amount of unpaid graphic design I've had to do in my mind while reading this book. And everybody in this trilogy is a fantastic chef. And it's not that they all love to cook and that's a big part of their personalities and they see food as an extension of themselves and all of that. No, neither Cleo nor Sonya actually liked cooking before they came to the manor, but they keep doing it. And every time they do cook, like the first time they ever try to cook a dish, they make the most delicious dish anybody has ever tasted. There's never one bad mouthful of food in this house, despite everybody waxing poetic about how little they know about cooking or how nervous they are to try. They knock it out of the park every single time, and they have a great time doing it, and they're all very proud of each other for doing so. So there's no real, like, growth in that, right? There's no discomfort. There's no, I tried making beer, bread, and roast beef according to my mom's recipe, said Sonya in the first book, but failed the first time and then tried again and did well. There's just, I was nervous about trying to make beer bread in my mom's roast beef for the first time, said Sonya in the first book, and then I did amazing, and everybody said this is the best roast beef and beer bread I've ever had in my life, Sonya. So, and then it's just like, it just goes from there. Anytime they decide to make food, it is the best food that anybody has ever tasted or put in their mouth. So they knock the food out of the park every time they try, and they have a great time doing it, and they're all very proud of each other for doing so, and that's because everybody loves each other. And normally I would not have a problem with this. However, this is supposed to be a book about a woman that is breaking a centuries-old curse and freeing the trapped souls of the women who came before her, and it gets really sort of frustrating when most of the book is as the characters complimenting each other about how smart and pretty and efficient and good at their job and good at cooking they are, and how they refuse to let Hester Dobbs feed on their fear. And with that, I feel like I've caught you up as well as I'm going to. Book 2, The Mirror, ends with Hester Dobbs forcing the friendly dead of the Lost Bride Manor to relive their own violent deaths in a horrendous loop to try and frighten Sonya, Trey, Cleo, and Owen into leaving the house for good. And The Seven Rings, Book 3, picks up exactly where Book 2 left off. I don't even know if I'll use this clip, but this book is excruciating this time around. And I'm not trying to be like, Nora Roberts written like 300 books. I'm sure she can take this criticism if she needs to. But I'm this far in, right? Just a tiny little sliver. I had forgotten the way that this book was written, and it's just constantly everybody explaining all of their plans and every little thought that enters their mind as it comes to them. So it started off with them in the middle of like a big ghostly haunting things where the evil witch woman Hester Dobbs is making all of the ghosts that she's killed in the house relive their deaths, and this makes everybody feel bad because they like the nice ghosts, and so they decide to sing a Foo Fighters song to prove to Hester Dobbs that they're not afraid of her, and that finally ends the cycle of torment and they're able to move on with their lives. After that, everybody has omelets, and we walk through the merits of omelets and who's going to make the omelets. It's Cleo, but only after Owen was like, I'm going to ask Cleo if she'll make omelets, and if she won't, I will make something for us. And then Cleo says, okay, I'll make omelets for you. Then everybody kisses the person they're into, so Trey and Sonya and Cleo and Owen, and they all kiss, and everybody has coffee, and then Cleo's like, I'm going to sleep, and the guys are like, we have to get out of here and get to work, but don't worry about dinner, we'll get dinner. And then Sonya's like, I'm sad because I'm upset that Hester hurt the other ghost's feelings. And they're like, Sonya, you're so strong for everything you have to go through, Sonya. And Sonya's like, I know I could have gotten through it alone, but I'm glad I didn't have to, Trey. And then Sonya doesn't go to sleep. And like the way this is written is there's very few dialogue tags, and she will switch who's talking without saying it. And so there's times where you're reading it and you're like, who is speaking right now? And it's difficult to follow. Then it's like, Sonya was so tired after everything that happened. She went and took a shower. It was 6 a.m. She came out. Molly, the dead Irish maid, had laid out stretchy pants and a t-shirt for her. And she says, thank you, Molly. This is perfect. Then she throws her hair up into a tail, not a ponytail, just a tail, because who cares about her hair, and goes down to get to work. Emails first, then she'll make any changes to current project, then she'll start on new projects. And after she's worked for a few hours, Cleo wakes up and it's noon, and then Cleo's like, I'm gonna go make a dreamy painting, and she's like, that's great. And then Sonya has a Coke, and then Sonya goes and does a little bit more work. Thankfully, nobody does a video call, but she has her emergency makeup just in case. Then she goes out and she sees Cleo's dreamy painting. She chose dreamy over dramatic, and it's a beautiful painting. And Sonya makes them a charcuterie board for a snack, and the two of them talk about how much they love life and being alive, and how they're going to get that Hester Dobbs just by not being afraid of her. And then they go upstairs and they go through Colin Poole's office. That was the guy who owned the house right before Sonya, her dad's twin brother, who Sonya did not know he existed until she inherited the house. And as they're going through the desk, they're like, wow, he's really organized. He kept all of his papers. I think that we should I think that we should clear the hard drive and set this computer up as a spare computer for any guests. And they're like, that's fantastic. So I'm going to tackle this part over here, says Cleo. And Sonia's like, I'll tackle the desk over here. And when I'm finished, I'll clear the hard drive. That way we can set it up as a guest desk. That's so smart, Sonia, says Cleo. And then they start working and they're like, wow, we found a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe what we should do next is start going through photos. That's a great idea, Sonia, says Cleo. And then we can use it for the gold room where Hester Dobbs is haunting once we kick her out. And she's like, that's a great idea, Sonia, says Cleo. And then she's like, yeah, we'll go through and we'll put all the different photos in different boxes, a box for everybody we can recognize, a box for people we don't know but we know we want to hang up in the gallery, and then another box just to have everything stored and sorted. And they take everything downstairs because that's a great idea, Sonia, says Cleo, but then the guys come. Then the guys come home with dinner and they're like, how are you beautiful ladies doing? We got lobster rolls. And she's like, we're doing great. And then Sonia and Trey like look at each other's eyes and he's like, you're so smart and beautiful, Sonia. And she's like, thank you, Trey, I love you. And then Owen's like, you're so smart and beautiful, Cleo. And she's like, thank you, Owen, I like you too. I don't know if they're in love yet. Then Sonia explains her photo idea to Trey and explains that she's going to clear the hard drive off and set it up as a desk computer. And he says, that's great, that's great, that's great. Then Owen comes in after they've gotten all of their dinner supplies set up and they explain the photo idea and I think perhaps even the hard drive to him again. And he's like, wow, that's really great. Are you going to move the furniture in the office? No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to leave it there. That's great. It's a Jacobean cupboard, so you need to keep that. And she's like, I think I'm going to. The office is going to be Cleo's office. Then what happens next? Oh, everybody goes to sleep. They wake up at 3 a.m. to watch Hester Dobbs throw herself off of the cliff because she does that every night at 3 a.m. They go back to sleep again, and when Sonia wakes up in the morning, she decides to work out. She does a 50-minute workout. She's very proud of herself. She pushes herself through it. We check in 3 separate times during this 50-minute workout, and the bell rings from the gold room, the servant's bell. Oh, ding-a-ling-a-ling. That's Hester Dobbs trying to freak her out. And she's like, can it, lady? I'm getting my fitness on. And she gets her fitness on and Dobbs stops ringing the bell after about 30 minutes. And then she goes upstairs and she sees Cleo and she says, hi, Cleo, how are you? And Cleo's like, I'm good. I'm going to go on a sail today. Do you want to go on a sail with me? No, Cleo, I can't go on a sail. I have to do work. You're so responsible, Sonia. Thank you, Cleo. You're so responsible for using the beautiful boat you have. Thank you, Sonia. And then they say, here's the plan. You go take a shower and then I will go take my sail and I'll do some this is Cleo talking. I'll do some groceries and some errands, and when I come back we'll have a big girl salad for dinner and we'll finish that up with a big bowl of buttery popcorn and wine and a girly movie, and we'll just be girls and friends together. They didn't say girls and friends together. That's what I say when I'm hanging out with my girls who are also my friends. And so Sonia's like, that sounds great. And then Sonia goes and takes a shower and she says, you know what? To heck with my hair again. I'm throwing it back in a tail once more. She goes downstairs. She starts working. And wouldn't you know it, she gets a call for a video meeting with the writers of the writer proposal. And she's like, oh man, good thing I have my emergency makeup kit in my drawer. We did plant that seed several pages earlier. So she puts the makeup on and they're like, hey, Sonia, we really loved the proposal. And you know those normal people that you had making normal, like doing normal sport? Do you remember that? And she's like, I do. And they're like, especially the young guy on the bike. And she's like, yeah. Do you want me to get a bunch of different shots of him doing different things, like going on a date at night and walking around in the daytime? And they're like, yes, please, but have him wearing our sports stuff and the beautiful yoga girl, Cleo. And she's like, I'll have to ask about Eric, but Cleo's a shoo-in. And then Hester is trying to mess with her the entire time she's on the call. Like doors are banging around and there's a thumping and the doorbell won't stop ringing. And on the video call, the writer people are like, maybe your house is haunted. And she's like, it totally is, but don't worry. And so eventually Hester Dobbs, the evil witch woman, stops trying to bother her because Sonia refuses to be bothered. And that took me 8 minutes to explain, and we've read 43 pages. 43 of them. And just, why? Why, Nora? Why? Hello, Desk Summer here to provide some missing context between the clip I just showed you and the clip I'm about to show you. In the interim between my two check-ins, Sonya started a project that will last her the entire book. The purpose of this project is for Sonya to look through Sonya and friends, Sonya et al., to look through every single piece of furniture in the mansion for the 7 rings themselves or clues about the 7 rings. And her plan is that she's going to put a sticky note on every piece of furniture she's looked in. And there's a lot of furniture because the whole attic is stuffed with just glorious antique furniture that's in excellent repair because of all the happy ghosts. And then there's a bunch of furniture in the ballroom, and then there's also a bunch of furniture in the basement because over the 200 years that people have been living in this house, they keep buying new furniture and just moving stuff out and putting it somewhere else. Nobody gets rid of anything. So it's like an antique shop full of glorious, expensive, thousands of dollars worth in value antique furniture that she just gets to choose from and just decorate her whole house with it. So yeah, we're supposed to be looking for the 7 rings, but what actually happens is we get such exciting scenes as Sonya looking through the thing saying, no, here's a sticky note, no, here's a sticky note, wait. That was a beautiful cherry wood hutch. I think that beautiful cherry wood hutch would look very nice in the study. I should put a different sticky note on there saying study, so we know to take this down to the study later on. So she goes back and she redoes some of her work, and it's a good thing she started early. She had this idea early on in the search, so she was able to redo the few sticky notes with instructions on where they should go. And this is, all in an effort to claim the house as her own, in an effort to tell Hester Dobbs that this is her house and not her house. And by her house, I mean Sonya saying it's Sonya's house, not your house, Hester. And during one of these Saturday searches, the mirror, the magic time travel mirror that shows up that everyone can see, but only people with Poole blood can go into so that they can wander into a certain scene in time and witness the death of one of the brides, or witness something about the brides that will give her context clues to eventually set everybody free. Well, the mirror shows up out of nowhere, and this time she travels further than she's ever traveled before. Usually when she steps through it, it just takes her to the same room in a different time period. But this time, it takes her both to a different time period in the past and to a different room in the house. So she sees this beautiful desk, and they're on the hunt for a good, solid desk that can hold the computer that used to be Colin Poole's and whose hard drive she wiped so that guests who may stay there and need a guest office have this guest office. And she finds something that looks like it could be a good option. It's a lovely little desk, but when she touches it, the mirror shows up, she steps through, she finds herself not in the attic in the past, but in a different room entirely in the past, and at the desk is one of the brides, one of the younger ones who got married as a teenager. And we get to witness her writing a letter about how much she loves her fiance and how excited she is to be marrying the love of her life, and how together they will be more in love than anybody's ever been because they love each other, and they just really do. And she's so in love and she's so happy, and she can't wait to tell her friend more about how happy and excited she is that she is engaged to the love of her life. And then she folds up the letter and she looks over, and it's like she can sense Sonya's there because Sonya can also see that Hester is there. But this time the bride can't see or interact with either of them. She just senses a disturbance in the force. Sonya steps out of the mirror, very drained, because never before has the mirror taken her out of not also out of time, but also out of space. And everybody's like, Sonya, are you okay? We came up here and we saw the mirror. Are you all right? Are you okay? Sonya, you're so strong. And then they all go downstairs, and I'm pretty sure Sonya has a Coke, and then somebody makes food, and they all talk about everything that I just told you, and everybody talks about it a few times and rehashes it. What they end up deciding is that the very fine desk that Sonya wanted to use is not the best option for the guest office because she thinks it should be returned to the room where the bride was writing the letter. So it should be returned to that bride's bedroom. And so she is still on the hunt for a good desk for the guest office with the computer that has the freshly wiped hard drive, just in case anybody needs it if they're staying over and they just need a guest office. She has that for them. Fresh hard drive, nothing saved on it. So actually, no, I was perhaps being too sparse with my summary. She doesn't just decide not to use that desk for the guest office. There is more to it, and I have to tell you about the more to it because it encapsulates one of my biggest problems with this book. So there is prose like Hemingway, where it's very sparse, it's down to the bone, and you tell a story with it very lean, no fat on it, right? Like everything is trimmed and it's just the story, it's barest plot, it's barest details. And that is one style of writing, and it's cool sometimes, but not everything has to be bare bones writing, right? You can have prose and you can have descriptions that maybe don't exactly seem to tie to the plot or seem like they're a little bit extra information, but their purpose is to add atmosphere. Like, think of Haunting of Hill House. There's a lot of moments in Haunting of Hill House where Shirley Jackson waxes poetical on what's going on inside Eleanor's mind, and you get these sort of fantastical paragraphs that almost don't make sense, but they make you feel uneasy. They make you feel like something's standing behind you in the room and you just don't know. It makes you on edge. So they add to the atmosphere of the book. And unfortunately, the fat in this book does not add to the atmosphere. It, in fact, detracts from the atmosphere. This is supposed to be a haunted house book, but the way that these scenes are set up, the pattern of it, where Sonya or the group will go through a scary event, and then immediately after the scary event wraps up, Sonya will either tell the group what happened to her in great detail, or the group will discuss in great detail what happened to all of them. And while they're discussing what just happened, they are reassuring each other. They're eating a bunch of good food. They're talking about cooking food. They're talking about beverages. They're like, do you want a drink? Do you want coffee? Do you want a Coke? We can't let Hester Dobbs win. So it basically has the effect of being in a haunted house with all the lights turned on. You're halfway through a haunted house, the lights turn on, you can see all the gears and levers that control the things that jump out at you, and the scare actors are taking their masks off and talking about what they're going to get for dinner after work. And so it just like robs the story of any atmosphere it was going to have. And like part of this scene is set up well, where she sees the desk triggers a vision from the mirror. She sees the desk being used by the bride, and then she realizes, I need to take this desk, move it down to the correct bedroom, and reset the house to what it was when this bride was here so that her room is still hers. And in so doing, we will claim the house as our own and weaken Hester Dobbs' hold on the place. So that's what they do with that piece of furniture. But that's not the journey that we take. Instead, all of the first part happens, she triggers that, but then she's telling everybody what she thought, and she's like, I was going to use this desk as the guest office, but I've changed my mind because it should be moved to the dead bride's room. And then Owen pipes up and he's like, it's a good thing that you decided not to use this desk as the guest desk because it's too delicate of a wood and there's nothing on the top of it to protect the surface from getting scratched. So we would have had to fix the surface of it to prevent scratches, and that would have ruined the effect of the desk. So this was not a good choice in the first place. What you're going to want to look for is a nice, heavy, sturdy desk that preferably has a leather tooled top that will prevent from scratches. And she's like, thank you, Owen, that's a great idea. And he's like, no problem, Sonya. And then we never even get to see the inside of the guest office. So much time was spent talking about clearing off the hard drive, and so much time was spent talking about the merits of different pieces of furniture, not even just furniture that's going to be used for the desk. It's for why furniture that isn't going to be used for the guest office isn't a good fit. Like, it's already been ruled out. It's not going into the guest office, but Owen still needed to get his say in to tell us why that piece of furniture was never going to work in the first place. And it's like, okay, well, this would have been good information if he'd been in the scene when she saw the desk. Like, that could have been pre-mirror vision conversation, but instead it's post-mirror conversation after she already decided she's not going to use it, but we're still getting that bonus information. And so like it's fat on fat on fat. And then the worst part of all is that we never even see the inside of the guest office. No scenes of importance happen inside the guest office. There's no scenes with Hester Dobbs. There's no clues about the brides. There's no fights between any of the characters. Nothing happens in the guest office. And basically, I think we just hear like the guest office was finished. And that is what keeps happening. There will be plans on plans on plans on plans about what they're going to do, about why they're doing things. They're like, I'm looking through all this furniture so I can do this stuff. We should start planning a party so we can blah, blah, blah. This is all the stuff we're going to need for the party. This is all the stuff we're going to need for this movie night. This is all the stuff we're going to need for XYZ. And then the event comes and it's like, and then they did the event. And then the office was finished. And then the blah, blah, blah. So it's like you build and you build and you build up to this thing. And then the thing is done in like a sentence and has no bearing on the plot. It does not help with the quest to release the 7 brides from the terrible grip of Hester Dobbs, evil witch woman. So like, I don't understand it. And it's so frustrating that there's so much fat. I've got like 2 fans on, no makeup, and my hair up in these things. I'm sorry you keep having to see me like this, but let me just read this to you, okay? Can I just read this to you? This is what I'm dealing with. I'm on page 74. And they won't stop decorating the house. Like, that's the 74 pages in, okay? And all they've talked about so far is how they are going through the house, technically looking for clues, but while they're looking for clues on how to return the 7 rings to the 7 brides murdered by the witch woman Hester Dobbs, they're also, figuring out how they want to decorate the house. They're claiming it for their own. They're in defiance of the evil witch woman Hester Dobbs, they're claiming this house for themselves. And it's going to be their house, and she cannot stand against them in the light of their friendship and love. So at this point, they have found a nice desk with a good leather tooled top for the guest bedroom with the guest computer, the guest office they're making with the guest computer with the hard drive that they cleaned in case a guest needs a computer. And they returned the other bride's desk to her bedroom, and now Cleo is setting up Colin's office as her desk, but she's looking for a couple of good chairs. They found a collection of children's drawings, and the little ghost boy Jack, who helps with the dogs, he seems to have drawn a picture of Hester Dobbs when he was alive, and Sonya is going to make a protective book full of all of these little drawings, and she leaves a stack of papers and some crayons with a note that says for Jack so he can draw if he wants to. And so, just picking up, I'm going to read you some of this just so you can see the minutia that's included, the level of detail that is here. So you can see how the scary stuff is included in this book, but it's done in such a way where it's completely blown off and it has no purpose and no meaning and doesn't add anything to the story. Since she was there, she took and she's cooking pulled pork for the pulled pork sandwiches with hand-cut fries that she promised Owen for taking pictures for the new writer project. Okay. Since she was there, she took a peek at the simmering pork. Hoping for the best, she closed the oven door and went back upstairs. As she passed the 3rd floor landing, she glanced down the hall. Red light eked out of the gold room to outline the door. "Watch how much you matter," Sonya said, then turned her back and continued up. Cold air rushed after her, so her breath came out in clouds as she continued the climb. Though her belly quivered, she kept walking and followed the sounds of Cleo's voice to the attic. "This isn't what I had in my head, but I'm all about this chair. How do I miss pieces like this on the other go-throughs?" "You're looking for something else every time. This, the ballroom, the basement, all the storage areas are like some big never-ending bazaar." "That's exactly it. Well, we'll see what Sonya thinks of this one." So saying, she turned and sat in the chair with its high, straight-lined back framed in wood, set her elbows on the curved arms. So saying, she turned and sat in the chair with its high, straight-lined back framed in wood, set her elbows on the curved arms. So saying, she turned and sat in the chair with its high, straight-lined back framed in wood, set her elbows on the curved arms. Sorry. I just feel like there's a word missing there. "Looks comfy," Sonya decided as she worked her way back to them. "Is comfy. I had something more office-like in my head, but this? Unique, pretty, the wide..." Hold on, let me try and do different voices. "Looks comfy," Sonya decided as she worked her way back to them. "Is comfy. I had something more office-like in my head, but this? Unique, pretty, the wide stripe pattern reads practical, but the shape says interesting. Add that rose color will work with the wallpaper." "Unique, pretty, the wide stripe pattern reads practical, but the shape says interesting. Add that rose color will work with the wallpaper." "You're cold," Trey said when his arm brushed hers. "Just Dobbs blowing cold air, like a little chill's going to spook me." But she leaned against him for a moment for the warmth. I'm saying yes to that chair. I guess I'm hauling it down. With a smile, Sonya squeezed his right biceps, eyed widening. With a smile, Sonya squeezed his right biceps. With a smile, Sonya squeezed his right biceps, widened her eyes, and said, ew. It's a good thing I like the way you're reclaiming rooms. When Cleo rose, he lifted the chair, gave one annoyed grunt, then carried it out. Oh, you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? The way that this book is written, it's like, you know how if you're ever texting a coworker about a schedule, or you're trying to write notes for yourself about how you want your week to go out, and you're like, okay, I'm available Mon to Wen Thur Fry, because you're just writing like acronyms and you're cutting out unnecessary words. That's what their dialogue is like. It's like stream of consciousness, note-taking language for a bunch of furniture that doesn't come into play except to let us know that they've moved the furniture. One of my friends said that this sounds like fan fiction. And I think that's right. You know how every now and then people will write slice of life fan fiction where it's just the characters they love in a random little scenario, just like living life in a scenario. And they spend it's like really long and detailed and many, many words, but it's fun because you're kind of just living with the characters in that moment. That's what this is like. 3 books of it, except nobody knows who these characters are. Like, this is their original work. So we don't know anything about them, except we do. Honestly, I feel like I've known Trey and Sonya and Cleo my whole entire life. I've known them my whole life, you guys. I've known them my whole life, and they're my best friends. If we're looking at what's in between the 2 commas that are separating the description of the chair, it says, so saying, set her elbows on the curved arms, and that's not a complete sentence. And the next comma is between high straight lined back, and that is supposed to be for a descriptor. So not even so saying she turned and sat in the chair with its high set her, like that doesn't work either. So it's like there is a word missing there. And then we go up here and it's like unique, pretty. The wide stripe pattern reads practical, but the shape says interesting. Add that rose color will work with the wallpaper. That should be something like add that the rose color will work with the wallpaper. But she's cutting out what seems like unnecessary words, but it's unnecessary words if you're writing a note for yourself. Add that rose color. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, people don't talk like that. And then also, is it by Sep? I would say, oh, like if I were talking to my fiance, I'd say I squeezed his right bicep. I have to look up if the musculature is plural. Well, good job, Nora. My apologies. You had that one correct. My bad. I did not know. Apparently, the musculature is plural. You say my right biceps, my left biceps. So, the more you know. You learn every day. Okay, and this is a good example here. Okay, so I'm actually re-recording this clip because the first time I recorded it in the moment, all of my thoughts were coming out of my head at the same time, and so none of the things I was saying made any sense, and I refused to finish a sentence. This page is actually a good example of what I'm talking about when I'm complaining about the lack of dialogue tags. So just to sort of sum up what happened in the previous chapter, we were all in the attic. They started looking, they were finding all these little trinkets, and in addition to the gallery wall that Sonya has decided to put up in Hester Dobbs' room when they manage to evict her vengeful spirit from the house. By the way, as of this moment in the story, her room is glowing an eerie red and has been doing so for several pages. Once they get Hester Dobbs out of the gold room, they're going to turn that room into a gallery where they're going to have photos of everybody who ever lived in the house, and now they're also going to have a display of all these little everyday treasures that belonged to people who lived there, like a nice pen set, a collection of cufflinks, things along those lines. And so they're gathering all of that. And listen, the reason I wanted to clarify that I had refilmed this clip is because with the benefit of having finished the book, I can tell you with certainty that the planned gallery is another one of those things that we spend a lot of time talking about, but never ultimately has any closure, like a plan on a plan on a plan on a plan on a plan that is intricately discussed, that has little to no payoff, because we start talking about the potential gallery in chapter 5, and when we get to the end of the book, we never hear about them putting it up. Like, not even a sentence saying, Sonya did everything she had planned with the gallery room. It's just not mentioned in the epilogue. And I mean, yeah, I guess we can assume that they took care of that, and the other museum they ended up planning, and all the projects we taught, and the Christmas party that gets planned but never actually seen. We'll get to that when we get to it. But this is another one of those things where it's like chapter 5 through until the end of the book, we talk about how they're going to turn it into a gallery. And then it's never like, there's no scenes that happen in there. We don't get to see them actually setting it up. We don't even get a single sentence. And yeah, sometimes the single sentence resolutions have bothered me, but not even a single sentence of this plan on a 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 plan that we never actually see the result of. And there's a lot of that in this book. That's what happened in the previous chapter, and we pick up with chapter 6 with a single sentence that sort of buttons that before moving on to the next scene. So it says, Sonya decided to keep what she thought of as the everyday treasure box in the quiet place, the guest room where Cleo had her spillover clothes. They'd add to it, no doubt, on the next search. So Cleo is mentioned, but as you can see, Cleo's not really mentioned as being in the scene with Sonya. So far, the only person we know is here right now is Sonya, and Sonya has left the attic since she's putting the everyday box into the quiet place. Then it says, maybe nothing so far provided any insight on recovering the 7 rings, but every piece gave her more insight on the Poole family. And yes, she thought again, it mattered. But it was time to return to the here and now, and the now meant dinner. So, attic is wrapped up, she has left the attic to go to the quiet place, and now she's moving into the kitchen. And we know it's Sonya because we're with Sonya at the very beginning of the chapter. So when the dialogue starts and it says, I forgot the cake. I probably should have made the cake first. The only person we know in the room is Sonya. Nobody else has been mentioned in the scene. Again, Cleo's name was mentioned, but that was to reference just a room that Cleo puts her clothes in. So that's not really saying Cleo's in this thing. I know it sounds like I'm being pedantic and making this point, but walk with me. This happens over and over in the book. So somebody says, not according to my mama, that shortcake will get soggy. I'll handle the cake. Okay, so no dialogue tag, no saying. Now there's no dialogue tag for the first person who spoke, but context clues leads us to believe that it's Sonya. Second person, no context clues as to who that might be. So then Sonya, we assume, says, really? All yours? I have to make the fries. Did you know you're supposed to soak the potatoes? Now, responds the person who is speaking with who we assume is Sonya. Then who we assume is Sonya starts talking and says, no, after I play the mandolin, which is a callback to the hilarious banter between Trey and Sonya, where he's like, you have to cut the potatoes with the mandolin. And she's like, you have to play the mandolin. And he's like, no, the mandolin, it's a kitchen tool. And she's like, I've never heard of that kitchen tool. And then he pulls it out of a drawer and she's like, that's a mandolin. I guess I'll have to play the mandolin. And I'm not too proud to say that I wouldn't make that exact same joke. I would. And maybe that's part of the problem. Too much of this dialogue sounds like natural human dialogue. And normally you'd be like, wow, she's so good at writing natural sounding human dialogue, and that is a benefit, except when the purpose of the story is to tell a specific story and the dialogue doesn't help inform the story, and instead it sounds like we're just having a conversation with the best friends we've ever had, who are 4 strangers to us who don't exist in a fictional world. I know everything about them because we spend 8 years having normal, natural human conversations. And if this was just a slice of life book, then, or a romance, then by all means, have all the natural human conversation you'd like. But this is supposed to be a haunted house book with a haunted house purpose, and the purpose is to save the brides by getting the 7 rings. And we are 3 books deep, and we're... So now, after I play the mandolin, which I'm about to do, then barbecue sauce. I didn't even know you could make barbecue sauce. Why would you make something you can get in a bottle? A deal's a deal, she reminded herself, and got to work. So, a deal's a deal, she reminded herself and got to work, almost makes it seem like she's talking to herself, because it's not like she said to whoever, or, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, that dialogue tag, the only dialogue tag we've gotten so far, says she reminded herself and got to work, makes it seem like she's alone in the kitchen talking to herself, okay? Now that we've reached the end of that dialogue block, let me just reread it to you so you can hear how it sounds. We don't know who the people are, so I'm going to do the same voice since we have no clue who these characters are supposed to be. Context is important and we can muddle through, so I'm not saying, don't use your brain. I'm not saying, I'm being a little bit... I am being picky about this because I'm making a point, and you are able to pull some things together just from like, it's chapter 6 of the 3rd book, so I can guess who's speaking. But this is such a prevalent issue that happens over and over and over again, and sometimes happens with characters you haven't met before. Like, characters will pop up who have never spoken in the book before and won't have a dialogue tag until a few sentences after they've spoken. And so this is why I'm harping on this scene, just as an example. But so Sonya blah 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 blah, then I forgot the cake. I probably should have made the cake first. Not according to my mama. The short cake will get soggy. I'll handle the cake. Really? All yours? I have to make the fries. Did you know you're supposed to soak the potatoes? Now? No. After I play the mandolin, which I'm about to do. Then barbecue sauce. I didn't even know you could make barbecue sauce. Why would you make something you can get in a bottle? A deal's a deal, she reminded herself and got to work. The only dialogue tag is that she reminded herself and got to work. So that is the only person we know she's actually speaking to is herself. Then we go to, while the pork rested on the cutting board, she started slicing scrubbed potatoes. Okay, this is easier than I thought. We still hope it's Sonya. And then finally, we confirm that Cleo is in the room when it says, as Cleo slid a baking pan into the oven, the dumbwaiter in the butler's pantry rumbled. So, again, I'm being a little bit pedantic. I'm being a little bit picky, and I am harping on this particular scene that, granted, of all the times this happens in the book, is something that you can gather from context clues is probably Sonya and Cleo. But when this is occurring constantly in the story, where there's back and forth dialogue that isn't clearly established who the two parties are, it gets confusing. Or sometimes Cleo, Trey, Owen, and Sonya will all be speaking at the same time in back and forth dialogue, and you won't know who's talking because nobody has dialogue tags. Or like Cleo, Sonya, and Trey will all be in the room and there'll be a line of dialogue, a line of dialogue, a line of dialogue. You kind of are tracking who's saying what. Then somebody will be like, well, I've never heard of that before, or something that sounds completely out of context with the flow of the scene that's happening. And then it'll be like, Sonya said, oh, I guess you're right, as Owen walked into the room. So when you're in the middle of like a 3-person dialogue back and forth, and you introduce a 4th person without immediately saying Owen said as he walked into the room, it's just like, it just is really frustrating after getting scene after scene after scene of that. So that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, I'm on page 147 now, and some stuff finally started happening, thankfully. It took a long time, though. I've got notes in my notes section, editing Summer. Go ahead and put those in. Hello, sorry. It's a little cluttered back here. My mom and grandma were just in town for my bridal shower because I'm getting married. So how apropos it is that I'm still talking about a book about brides, right? Right? So let's see. So basically, after the rant I just had, they made the sandwiches, they made the fries, they had a delicious dinner. All that prep for the dinner was wrapped up in about 2 sentences of them saying they had the delicious fries and sandwiches. And now they've decided they're going to go out on the town for a little bit. So they're going to go to a dive bar, they're going to play some pool, and they're going to listen to an up-and-coming band and just have a nice evening out on the town. What happened in chapter 7 is they all took a sail to a beautiful inlet. They got out of the boat, set up a picnic lunch on the beach, and from the beach they could see Lost Bride Manor, and they could also see Hester Dobbs sending out her evil ghost bird that she sometimes sends out to attack the animals. They're like, wait, look at what she's doing. She's practicing. And she waited till we left so we couldn't see her weakness because her confidence is growing shaky because of how much love and light we're bringing to this house and how much we're refusing to let her rob us of our joy or let her feed off our fear. And so she's trying to practice and get stronger while we're not there because she's a ghost coward. And they all felt very buoyed by that. And then they all go have lunch with Ace and Deuce. Trey is there as well, and they have a delicious chicken salad instead of going to a restaurant, and then they talk, I believe, about setting up photo shoots for everybody for the new writer project. Oh my gosh, I actually almost forgot why I took this clip, and it's because the first sentence of chapter 8 is, on Friday, after a productive week, Sonya joined Cleo and her dreamy lavender toes at sunrise, and if you're confused, yeah, let me just say that is quite the way to start a chapter. So basically the context you're missing is Sonya. She's going to take more photos for Ryder, the sports company, and they wanted the yoga girl back. The yoga girl is Cleo. They send her a beautiful lavender matching set. They were going to do like a normal run-of-the-mill daytime photo shoot, but once she tries on that lavender set, she's like, this is perfect for a sunrise photo shoot. Sonya says that. And Cleo's like, oh my gosh, I hate getting up early, but you're so right. That would be amazing and perfect. But first, I have to get a pedicure, lavender, to match this set. And so they base their schedule on when Cleo gets her lavender pedicure. They mention it in that scene. Then they tell the photographer, hey, you're on deck to do this sunrise photography session, but we're waiting on Cleo to paint her toes purple. And then if we keep looking at the page, what happens is we talk a lot about the purple pedicure that is to come. Then chapter 8 opens with, on Friday, after a productive week, Sonya joined Cleo in her dreamy lavender toes at sunrise. And then it continues, and the photographer is like, if you look right at the bottom of the page, it says, by the way, the toes, fabulous touch. And I'm like, why are we talking so much about Cleo's feet? I don't want to talk about this anymore. Please don't start the chapter with dreamy lavender toes. Okay, so my next note for myself was page 110, a second girls' night with the exact description of the first. Now, I believe I already went over girls' night number 1, which was basically them saying, hey, let's have a big girly salad, some crackers and cheese, popcorn, wine, movie night, fantastic. And then they talk about it a whole bunch. They make the salad, and then it basically says Sonya sets aside her empty bowl of popcorn and was like, this is a great movie night. Let me lay out the actual timeline of events. So top of page 41, Sonya's just finished a workout. She's about to go to work. Cleo, she's about to go painting and on a beautiful sail. They both think the other is responsible for doing the things they need to do and taking the time they need to relax. So Cleo says at the top of page 41, you're right, we're responsible girls. So let's just be girls tonight since Owen and Trey both have work this evening. I have a plan. Tell me the plan before this sweat rolls off me and leaves a puddle on the floor. A big, giant girl salad for dinner, a solid session of sorting the photos, then a big, giant, buttery, salty mountain of popcorn, a bottle of wine, and a girly movie in PJs. So that is Girls' Night 1 proposed. Then we have 41, the rest of page 41, all of page 42, all of page 43, all of page 44, all of page 45, and then all of page 46, where Sonya has a Zoom call with the writer people. They talk about the new photos that the writer people need. They talk about maybe Sonya's house is haunted because there's a bunch of banging and slamming on the doors. Sonya reaches out to people to say, hey, we're going to do more photographs. The boys say, hey, I'll do more photographs. Actually, it's Owen who says, hey, I'll do more photographs, but only in exchange for pulled pork sandwiches and fries. Then, finally, Cleo gets home. Sonya tells Cleo about everything that they went over on the call and the free outfit she's gonna get. Then she tells her everything that happened with Hester Dobbs that we all just lived through. Then we get all the way here. They unload the groceries. Sonya goes back to work for a little while until page 47 by here, where this line on page 47, about halfway down the page, we get Girl Dinner, the conclusion, and it says, in contrast to the afternoon storms, the evening moved smooth and quiet and ended with laughter and sighs as the credits rolled on a clever and frothy rom-com. Comfortable in PJs, Sonya let out one more sigh. Just what I needed. How about you? Bullseye. I love men, and I'm especially fond of the two who come around here, but there's nothing like girls' night. This one hit all the marks. So that's girls' night 1, right? It's like lots of prep, very little production. And that's sort of what happens here. Page 110, a second girls' night with the exact description of the first. Halfway down the page, we get this description: big giant salad, fancy cheese and crackers, wine, followed by popcorn, more wine, and girl movie. Not a girl movie, and girl movie. And what I didn't realize was, as I was reading through page 110, is this, it's the perfect example of the graphic design we get to do with Sonya. So let me just go through that for you. So this is a client that we hear about on page 110 and who never comes up again and is not important and plays no part in the story and is just here for this time right now. Hand on hip, she studied Sonya. You know, you've worked really hard and long this week. You should take a few hours. Paint with me. I may have a new client. Really? Who? What? My mother's doctor. Mom's been going to her for about 15 years. I used her too. Mom was in for her annual physical and they chatted some. Dr. Lawrence asked how I was, and one thing led to another. The website is dated, plus she's adding a new associate into the practice. I need to work up a proposal. I won't get in the way of that. But if you finish or you just want a break, come out. And remember, it's sappy movie night. I never forget sappy movie night. Big giant salad, fancy cheese and crackers, wine, followed by popcorn, more wine, and girl movie. The Friday night special. Sonya worked while Cleo changed, while she went up to her studio to get what she needed. As Cleo headed down, so did Yoda. Yoda's with me, Cleo called. Thanks. Then quiet as she read more about Dr. Nia Lawrence to spark ideas and direction for her proposal. Potential new clients always pumped her up, and within 20 minutes, she had a concept. The doctor had a family practice, so play up the family vibe with calm, warm colors and clear, simple fonts. Photo and bio of the doctor in a drop-down, a photo of her talking to a patient, short 2 or 3 line bios of staff, photos of them interacting with patients. Our family cares for your family. Something like that. Office hours, office numbers, right up front. She could absolutely make it look good, appealing, but that was nothing if it wasn't more user-friendly and more accessible to mobile devices. She could fix it, and spent the next hour working the concept into a plan, then added more time turning the plan into a proposal. Now we're on page 111. That is the level of description we get pretty much any time Sonya sits down at the computer. We're there with her the entire time, and that's sort of the tone of not only a lot of the conversation between Cleo and Sonya, but also the style of writing. It's like quick, snappy, stream of consciousness, what you would write down on a notepad if you didn't want to forget so you could like work on the project later, you know? So it's the way it was like, the doctor had a family practice, so play up the family vibe with calm, warm colors and clear, simple fonts. Photo and bio of the doctor in a drop-down, a photo of her talking to a patient. Short 2 or 3 line bios of staff, photos of them interacting with patients. So it's just like, that's how those parts are written, and that kind of makes sense. Is it kind of frustrating to spend most of our book reading paragraphs like that where we're doing graphic design work instead of studying the mystery of the 7 brides? Yes, that's my major beef with this entire trilogy. But at least that makes sense for the scenes where we're in Sonya's head working on graphic design. But the problem is that also carries over to Sonya and Cleo conversing about what furniture to use in different rooms. Sonya and Trey talking about, maintenance projects they're going to do on the house. Owen, Trey, Cleo, and Sonya talking about their plans to try and get back at Hester Dobbs. And it's all done with this like short, quick, snappy, cut out words that aren't important. And it's like those words aren't important if you're writing on a sticky note, but if you're like having a conversation, and then there's the whole Sonya worked while Cleo changed, while she went up to her studio to get what she needed. Sonya worked while Cleo changed, while she went up to her studio to get what she needed. Is Cleo changing or going up to her studio? And is it even Cleo she's talking about? There's just like, Sonya worked, so Sonya would be in her library office while Cleo's changing, but then why is Cleo changing while she's going up to her studio to get what she needed? So like that sentence doesn't make any sense. Then you've got an entire page of the book dedicated to one project and one character who never returns. The graphic design is the least important thing about this story because the graphic design doesn't play into solving the mystery of the 7 rings or releasing the souls of the 7 murdered brides or getting Hester Dobbs out of the gold room, but we spend most of our time doing graphic design. So page 111 was my next note, and the reason I brought that up was because Sonya, mid-design proposal, realizes that her dead grandma, who's a DJ and plays tunes from beyond the grave to communicate with everybody in the house, stopped playing music. And Sonya can hear voices from the beyond because the mirror is there somewhere in the house. So she follows the sound until she gets to a room, walks through it, and she sees Catherine, one of the brides. So this is Catherine is the bride who made it all the way to her wedding night, fell asleep, and then ended up sleepwalking deep into the snow. Like she just walked out into the winter's night in only her nightgown, no shoes or anything, and walked so far before she woke up that she froze before she came home. Like she died of hypothermia trying to get back to the house because she'd gone so far. And this was, of course, because of Hester Dobbs. So Sonya pops in on a moment before the wedding night. So this is just a few hours before Catherine dies. So the bride's mom, Arabella Poole, so that's, it's a Poole daughter getting married this time. Bride's mom is brushing her hair and she's like, Catherine, you're so beautiful. You're going to have such a great life. He loves you so much. You love him. This is going to be wonderful. And Catherine's having a very nice moment until, boom, scene stops. She looks at Sonya and she's like, she kills me tonight. Hester Dobbs kills me. She makes me walk out into the snow where I freeze and I die. And there is still time and you can still stop this. And you have to stop this for us, Sonya. So, okay, cool. That's something that happened that's mystery related. But the thing that stuck out to me was right here. So it was halfway through page 111 where it says, the room held an armoire she recognized from her Saturday search, a washstand with a bowl and pitcher, a small tufted chair, and table, and a vanity with a mirror. The reason I bring this up is because there are moments where this story could have been tightened, where the things mentioned could be woven better into the story so it has meaning and feels like things are said with a purpose instead of being so meandering. And that's something, and this is a really good example of that because this says the room held an armoire she recognized from her Saturday search, a washstand with a bowl and pitcher, a small tufted chair, and a table and a vanity with a mirror. Earlier, in an earlier chapter, I think it was like chapter 4 or chapter 5, Sonya, during one of her many walkthroughs trying to find furniture and figuring out where it should go, notices a washstand with a bowl and pitcher. She picks it up. She thinks this is a really great bowl and pitcher. Cleo walks in and says, that's a really great bowl and pitcher. I'm seeing it on a cute little stand, maybe in my bathroom. Mark it for me. We should put it down there. It's fantastic. So I would say a good half of a page is dedicated to this washstand, bowl, and pitcher. So, you would think, okay, we spent a lot of time focusing on that. Does this washstand, bowl, and pitcher have any significance? Well, if we were to come to page 111 and it said the room held an armoire, and then if it said and the washstand, bowl, and pitcher she recognized from the Saturday search, it would be like, okay, maybe that washstand, bowl, and pitcher stuck out because it's from one of the bride's rooms. That would have made it important, and then it would have made sense that it had been flagged for our attention in this dialogue. But instead, it says the room held an armoire she recognized from her Saturday search. And in that Saturday search, there wasn't really an armoire that was pointed out to the reader. There wasn't a specific piece of furniture that was like, this is a significant one. It's got a cool detail. It's got a cool trim. Like, we had that whole Saturday search. No time was spent describing any of the armoires, but a significant amount of time was spent describing the washstand, bowl, and pitcher. But instead of saying the room held the bowl and pitcher that now was in Cleo's bathroom, it's just like an armoire that was never discussed before, but that Sonya, the character, recognized because she saw it because she exists in the story. That was brought in. And then an entirely different washstand and pitcher that have no connection to anything that's happened in the story are mentioned as being in the room as well. The reason I'm harping on these things is because these are small examples of what you see throughout this entire trilogy, where things are brought up, they're introduced. A lot of time is spent discussing them. A lot of time is spent going over the details of these items. We spend a lot of time learning what each character thinks about these things, what their opinions are on these things or events or objects or decisions people make. And then they're just dropped and never brought in again. They're never woven back into the story. That's not a clue for the reader to hold on to. It's not a thread in the tapestry. It's just a dangling participle. And I know that's not the grammatic. I know that's not what it actually is, but it's just like brought up for no reason, and it has no bearing on the story. And there are moments where those things could have bearing, like the second girls' night that matches the description as the first. That's right, you thought I'd forgotten or dropped my mention of the first girls' night and why it was significant that it matched the second girls' night, but it was all leading up to this. That girls' night leads to the big confrontation with Hester Dobbs that happens during this second girls' night. And the reason there's a second girls' night is because the boys are all playing poker, so they're out of the house. Sonya and Cleo are alone and not able to be defended by the menfolk. So that's significant. But we could have just cut out girls' night number one, because girls' night number one was just something to round out the end of the first day of this story. Like, they all decide to sing the Foo Fighters to fight off Hester Dobbs when she's making all the ghosts relive their deaths. Then everybody has a good, successful day at work. Then everybody has a really nice night at dinner. Then the boys go home, and then like the next day, Sonya and Cleo have a nice girls' night, and they're really good friends, and everything is better, even though they had such a weird day the day before. But everything's fine now. Girls' night, they go to bed. Nobody does anything at 3 a.m. and it's decent. Like, first 2 days of the book, like, it's just there to be there. It doesn't actually add anything to the plot. But then Girls' Night 2 definitely has a bearing on the plot. Things happen with Hester Dobbs. It is part of the battle to get her out of the gold room and free all the brides. So it's like, well, why did nobody tell Nora Roberts that she should cut Girls' Night 1? If she wanted to have more than one girls' night, it should have gone with the rule of threes, where you mention something to establish it, you mention it a second time to reestablish what normal is, and then the third time is when something weird goes on. So this was just a girls' night, and then a matching girls' night that was almost identical, but then this one actually led to something of significance. So it didn't have the establishing, reestablishing, change-up pattern. It was just, here's something extra that happened, and here's something that pertained to the plot that happened. So really, the first girls' night should have been trimmed, because the first girls' night doesn't pertain to the plot. Second girls' night does pertain to the plot. And if some of these fatty things were trimmed, like the excess girls' night or excessive mentions of random pieces of furniture that are never needed or brought up again, they're not tied back into the story, this book would be probably just one book instead of three, and it would be one really decent book. Oh my gosh, also, I never actually told you what happened with Hester Dobbs. Basically, end of girls' night, Cleo tries to go into her studio. All of a sudden, the Hester Dobbs door, which has been glowing red for like the past week and a half, slams open. Walls crack. They start bleeding. Hester Dobbs floats out. The floor seems to crumble beneath her. You know, they're trying to stand strong. They're trying not to be scared. Hester is speaking in some form of evil rhyme that basically, I can't remember the exact poetry of it, but she's basically like, I'm gonna bathe in Poole blood, Sonya. She doesn't say Sonya, though. That's just what they were doing. Then Cleo picks up a rock, or Sonya picks up a rock that was called like a heartstone or something, and she's like, get out of here, and she throws it at her, and Hester Dobbs is like, oh, and she looks, and the stone actually like hit her and made her bleed ghost blood, even though the stone just like went right through her. There was like the intention behind it. So it actually caused her harm. This is important because it does tie into what eventually saves the brides. And so when that happens, boom, Hester disappears. Turns out the walls aren't bleeding. Turns out the floor has not collapsed. Turns out nothing was on fire. But Sonya did get like hit in the head or like burned on the arm or something by Hester Dobbs in this whole scenario. Sonya is slightly wounded. She did not tell anybody that this was happening except Cleo because Cleo was there. They wait until the boys get back to the house to inform them, and they have learned that doing things with intention can cause actual harm to Hester Dobbs, which means this could be a clue to eventually defeating her. Welcome back. It's me from the beginning of the video. We have now reached all of the work I did on this video through Tuesday, February 24th. And with that, I feel like I have sufficiently made my main points about the issues I have with this story. This includes the choice to write most of the dialogue without dialogue tags, which can make it difficult to read this story. This includes the tone of the book, where not enough attention is given to the atmosphere of the story, and the atmosphere of the story is one of, I don't know, joie de vivre and joy, despite it's trying to be a haunted house book, which gives it an odd feeling of dissonance, because we're supposed to be feeling scared because the walls are bleeding, but we're not able to because we've spent so much time feeling happy with Sonya and refusing to feed Hester Dobbs with any of our fear by cooking really good food and spending a lot of great time with our boyfriends and best friends. There is no scary atmosphere in this haunted house book, and so it is a strange tone. And then of course I've given you an example of the detail with which Sonya does graphic design in this book, and the sort of like strange, snappy, punchy way that the book is written, where it feels as if this book was dictated to somebody and they wrote shorthand notes for themselves so they could go flesh it out later, but never ended up doing that. And so all of the unimportant words like the thes and the and that make a full flowing sentence have been removed, resulting in these short, choppy, punchy sentences that read like a handwritten note to remind themselves. With that, I have covered the main issues I have with this story. And from this point on, if I find myself wanting to harp on that when desk me with the microphone is trying to step in with context, I am going to simply repeat this exact clip. But I have already made that point, so we're going to move on. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. I will repeat me saying, but I have already made that point, so we're going to move on. And in this way, I will keep myself on track. So, with that. Anyway, finally, after just banging doors for the 8 bazillionth time, Hester Dobbs finally came out of her bedroom and made the walls crack and bleed and had a fire break out in the floor, and then she floated over the fire and was like, "Your house belongs to me," but it was all in rhyme. And then Sonya threw a rock at her and it hurt her and she went away, and then she did more work. Okay, so a bunch of stuff happened, but that kind of kicked off some actual action. So we finally got to see her deal with Hester, and then Trey got upset with her for not calling him. So we got a little bit of actual like interpersonal relationship there, where he was like, "I love you and I need to trust that you'll tell me if something's wrong because you're my priority." And she's like, "And I need you to trust that I am capable and able to take care of myself." And he's like, "I do trust that, but what was I doing? I was playing poker at poker night and you were here dealing with this and I didn't know. Like, I would have come over." And she was like, "But you needed a night off from guarding me." And he's like, I don't need a night off from you. I love you." So that was good. It was like, okay, finally, they're not all just complimenting each other over and over and over and over and over again. And then out of nowhere, this actually shocked and surprised me. Doorbell rang, and so we think, oh, it's just Hester again. It's just Hester Dobbs trying to spook people by ringing the doorbell. But Yoda barks at the door. And so she's like, oh, there's someone actually here. She sees a car she doesn't recognize out in the yard. So she runs down there. And who is it? Oh, it's her lying, cheating, no good, dirty dog, cabbage-hearted ex-fiance who cheated on her with her cousin Tracy. Brandon shows up at the door and he's like, wow, babe, you inherited this whole house and you got a dog? That's great. Oh, and you got a cat? Can you put that cat away so that we can go talk? And she's like, no, you're not welcome in here. Go away. And he's like, I'm coming in and I'm going to talk. So he like pushes past her and he's like, wow, this is a really beautiful house. Super gorgeous. It's way too big for you though, and you probably can't afford it. So I was thinking, what if you and I went back into business together and you let me take some of the writer project? So he's like, here, why don't you and I sit down and talk, and we can talk about getting back together because I would like to be back together with you, and I can also just take some of the writer project off of your hand. And she's like, for the third time, get out of my house. And he's like, no, you and I are going to talk. And then he starts seizing because he's allergic to the cat. And then he grabs Sonya and starts pulling her. And she's like, no, let go of me. You need to get out of my house. And he's like, no, we are going to sit down and we're going to have a conversation. And then all of a sudden, little ghost boy Jack throws Yoda's ball at the back of his head. And he's like, what's that? And he's like, did you? And then somebody hits him in the face. And he's like, did you just hit me in the face? She's like, you know I didn't, because he was looking right at her and her hands were not anywhere near his face. Then he gets kicked in the butt 3 times and then punched about the face a few times, all by invisible ghost hands. And then Clover finally actually uses her real voice instead of just playing a song to communicate. She does play a song to communicate, but then she also yells like, get out of my house. And so he's like, what's going on here? And then he gets kicked out of the house, booted away, and he's like, you haven't seen the last of me, you'll pay for this, Sonya. And then she's like, well, good riddance. And she realizes, okay, after my argument with Trey where he was like, I care about you and I want to know if something is wrong so that I can come and make sure you're okay. I don't think that you're incapable of taking care of yourself, but I just want to always make sure that I'm there to also take care of you if you need it. So she's like, hey Trey, nothing too crazy going on with me today, but my ex-fiance Brandon Wise came into the house and would not leave when I told him to, and he's like, I'm coming over. So he comes over and he's like, hey, boyfriend and lawyer mode, did you say he could come in? And she's like, no, I told him he was not welcome. He's like, that's your exact words? And she's like, yeah. He goes, we have really good trespass laws here. He's like, okay, and what else happened? He pushed past you after you said he wasn't welcome? And she goes, yes. Then she tells him everything, and he goes, and he put his hands on you and your arm is bruised? He grabbed her so hard that her arm was bruised. And she's like, yes, he did, but can't we laugh about the ghost beating him up? And he's like, no, we cannot laugh about that right now. And then you're saying as he left, he said, you haven't seen the last of me or you'll regret that? She's like, yes, he did. And he's like, okay, perfect. He trespassed, he assaulted you, and he threatened you. We can probably get him in jail for at least 2 years. You're going to file a police report and you're going to take care of this because, and she's like, no, I don't really want to do that. And he's like, what if he goes after your mom? And she's like, dang it. So she does exactly that. Cleo comes home and Cleo's like, this crazy guy. And so she's all raging and ranting and stuff. The big difference is that Trey is very controlled. He has a very long fuse, and when he does get angry, he's very upset about things, but he's very sensible and controlled even when he's mad. Cleo is a very fiery and passionate woman. So she's yelling and she's like, Sonya, this is crazy. He's such a terrible man and you're such a wonderful girl and hibbity hibbity bah. So she's got both her 2 best friends and everybody, the man she loves and her best friend, and everybody loves her and she loves everybody and it's all going well. And she's like, man, even though this was kind of sucky, like I'm so grateful that I have all of you guys. And then the reason I felt like I needed to come pop in here and be like, this is what's going on, you guys, is because like Sonya explained all the ways that Trey had been a good support system and had been taking care of her and was also taking care of her with like legal matters. Let's see. I'll start a little bit ahead of what I want to read. So it says, good, because it really does. First, there's Trey with his quietly simmering rage and wall of legal logic. Now you with your loudly boiling rage and sensible psych evaluation. And to backtrack, my ghost and pet defense. I definitely feel better about all of it. Good. And when you tell Winter, you'll have a mama's fury and comfort. When Trey came out, Cleo rose, and when he stepped onto the deck, walked to him. She wrapped her arms around him, pressed her lips firmly to his. Nice to see you too. Anybody who goes after my girl Sonya, they go after me. Anybody who stands for her stands for me. Now you sit down with her a while. I need to put the groceries away and start dinner. We're kissing each other's boyfriends now? When Trey came out, Cleo rose, and when he stepped onto the deck, walked to him. She wrapped her arms around him, pressed her lips firmly to his. When Trey came out, Cleo rose, and when he stepped onto the deck, walked to him. She wrapped her arms around him, pressed her lips firmly to his. And he says back, nice to see you too. We're kissing each other's boyfriends now. We're kissing each other's serious boyfriends now. I just feel like, me personally, no matter how much I really love and appreciate my friends and am so appreciative, me personally, I don't care how grateful I am that my friend's boyfriend is being kind to her. I'm not gonna kiss that man. Because that's her boyfriend to kiss. Why are we kissing each other's boyfriends, Cleo? Very weird. Very weird. And he's like, nice to see you too. No. So a lot happened. Finally, 146 pages into this, and all we've done is look at furniture. Finally. Oh, just kidding. I'm not done yet. Let me read that for you one more time, just so we're really refreshed on what's happening. And this is the bottom of page 146 and on to page 147. I had not even read this far yet. When Trey came out, Cleo rose, and when he stepped onto the deck, walked to him. She wrapped her arms around him, pressed her lips firmly to his. Nice to see you too. Anybody who goes after my girl, Sonya, they go after me. Anybody who stands for her, stands for me. Now you sit down with her a while. I need to put the groceries away and start dinner. I put them away. Owen's bringing dinner. Owen is her boyfriend, by the way. Also, I don't know why she says my girl, Sonya. We all know who Sonya is. We should all know each other's boyfriends and girlfriends' names if we're all friends and two of us are living in the same house. Why is everybody introducing each other by their names as if we don't know who they are? Anybody who stands for my girl, Sonya, just in case you didn't remember that's my girl. Okay, sorry. That's not even the point I'm trying to make. Anybody who goes after my girl, Sonya, they go after me. Anybody who stands for her, stands for me. Now you sit down with her a while. I need to put the groceries away and start dinner. I put them away. Owen's bringing dinner. We thought it was a good night for pizza. When isn't it? I'm going to go open us a bottle of wine. Opened, breathing on the island. I like a man who thinks of everything. Pleased, she kissed him again. I'll just go get glasses, put together a little crudité. When she went in, I'm just going to keep reading because I haven't read this far yet. When she went in, Trey sat. He took one quick study of Sonya and smiled. Bouncing back, aren't you, cutie? You always do. If I start to worry, I just bring back a picture of his face when he ran out of the house. It's right up there with the picture of Dobbs when I hit her with the rock. Yeah, I'm skimming down the page before I go back and read the rest of it. Sonya doesn't say anything. Cleo kissed her boyfriend full on the mouth twice in front of her with very flirty language, and he very flirty languaged her back. Nice to see you too. I like a man who thinks of everything. Oh, my word, not in my beautiful mansion. Oh, my word, not in my beautiful mansion that I'm letting you live in rent-free. Not in my beautiful mansion haunted by kindly, helpful ghosts, except for one evil witch woman named Hester Dobbs that I let you live in rent-free and let you have a beautiful art studio and turn my dead uncle's office into your office. And you kiss my boyfriend 2 times in front of me with flirty language when we just cleared the hard drive to make a guest computer and found a desk that had a leather-tooled top instead of the desk that was Lissy's, one of the dead Brads. My ex-fiance just grabbed my arm and bruised me. But I think my heart is bruised further because my best friend in the entire world, Cleo, by the way, in case we all forgot, kissed my man in front of my face and he said, nice to see you too, back. And then she kissed him again and said, I like a man who thinks of everything. I thought you were supposed to be a girl's girl, Cleo. I thought you were supposed to be a girl's girl. I thought you were supposed to be a girl's girl. I'm having such a bad time. I'm having such a bad time reading this book. Okay, so I'm on page 156. I actually need to go to bed, but I wanted to touch base briefly because earlier in the book, I don't know if I've made this distinction yet with my actual sitting at my desk summer talking about this, but Trey made the observation that all the brides had been obstacles for Hester Dobbs because they were threats to her role as mistress of the manor. That's what she's always wanted to be. That's why she keeps throwing herself off the seawall, because why she keeps killing the brides, because if she's killed the brides, then that makes her mistress of the manor. It's like one bride a generation. He said, you're kind of an enigma and more of an annoyance to her, because if a man owned the house, then she could still be mistress of the manor. But now you're a single woman living here, and it seems like you're possibly the new mistress of the manor, but you're also not a bride, so you can't take her place because she's got 7 wedding rings, baby. She's a bride 7 times over in her mind. And when he said that, there was a moment a couple paragraphs later where he looked at her with some significance, and then when she was like, huh? He was like, oh, and said something else. And I was like, okay, I'm hoping that this is foreshadowing, and what's going to happen is that Hester's going to try and figure out how to get this They clarify, they're like, I'm her competition, I'm not an obstacle. Obstacles, like the bride, get removed. Competition tries to get beaten. So she's just trying to scare Sonya away, but she's not murdering her because she's not a bride. But I was like, if this story has any merit at all, that will be foreshadowing to when Trey proposes to Sonya, and when she actually does become a bride, that's when there will be the final showdown between Sonya and Hester Dobbs for all the souls that reside in the Lost Bride Manor. And she will finally find the 7 rings and set the 7 brides free, which is supposedly what this book is about. But I have already made that point, so we're going to move on. Here we are. Page 155 and 156, they sent Brandon to jail briefly. He got arrested and then he went to court, and the threat of having to spend a year in jail led him to be like, I'm not going to bother her anymore, and I'm going to take the first deal thrown at me. So that was all taken care of within a page and a half of the end. We're actually in part 2 now. Part 2 opens at the trial, everything's sorted, page and a half. And Ace says, that girl's a jewel, and you ought to put one on her finger, boy. Ace just sighed, turned to his son. I don't know where this boy gets his snail speed from. It sure isn't from me. So they have a little bit more chat, and then right before it switches to a new scene, he says, buy that girl a ring, Ace called out as Trey left. Trey just shook his head and kept going. So my theory is coming along nicely, and I'm hoping that he will propose and they will start wedding planning, and we're all going to be in it together, and we're all oh my gosh. Am I going to have to plan a wedding with Sonya while I'm planning my own wedding? Please don't make me do this. Mitzi, I don't want to. The first 2 books I read of this, I was like, I'm going to read a little bit of fiction, take a break from my job as a freelance graphic designer, only to discover that I should be getting paid money to read this, because the entire time I read it, I felt like I was logged in on Clockify doing freelance graphic design, because that's how detailed it is. And if that man proposes to Sonya, I am going to have to read about Sonya
planning a wedding, I am going to have to listen to every single thought that's in that woman's head. On top of her graphic design work. And that's the exact boat I'm in. And I'm very excited to be getting married, and I'm actually very excited. I'm working on the invitations now. It's going to be very cool. That's what I'm going to do this weekend. But that's fun for me because it's my wedding. It's fun for me because it's my wedding. I don't want to read about Sonya's wedding because I'm going to have to, oh no. I just have to read this fast.
When I read this next clip, I was on the gym, in the treadmill. No, I was at the gym, on the treadmill, and I was so flabbergasted I had to record in the moment. The context you're missing is Sonya's mom has come to visit Lost Bride Manor. She's still new to all this ghost stuff. She didn't believe it initially, but she does believe it now. And she's concerned with everything that happened with Brandon and with everything that's going on with Hester Dobbs, evil witch woman, that her daughter is not safe. And so Sonya comes into the kitchen one morning, the final morning of the visit, I believe, to find her mom, Trey, and Owen all discussing her safety. And she's a little bit annoyed. She's like, guys, I can take care of myself. I don't want anybody to worry about me. And everybody's trying to reassure her. We drop into the middle of the conversation, and I'll read it here since I mumble and you can't understand me previously.
That's not what I heard. Relax with it, cousin. We're in this together. We're not just here.
Owen says, and I'll use mine to say we're here to look out for you. I think he just means like his point of view, his 2 cents, whatever. I can't remember, and it's not that important. Sonya says, I don't. And you look out for us, he interrupted. That's how it works. That's the deal, Sonya. That's not what she meant. That's what I heard, Owen corrected. Relax on it, cousin. We're in this together. We're not just here for the sex and free meals, though they weigh heavy on the scale. Trey had to laugh. That's one way to put it. What Owen's saying is we're here for all of it. For you and Cleo, for the brides, for Colin, for the manor. And if it wasn't for that other weight, we'd still be here. I'm happy bearing that weight, but one way or another, we're all in. One has to assume that's Owen responding there. And then, right at the bottom, Sonya says, I need coffee. I worry, Winter told her. Not every minute of every day, but I worry. So bear in mind...
He's talking to Sonya's mom at this point. That's what he's explaining.
Listen, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm the odd man out, okay? But me personally, as a woman, as a daughter, as someone named after a season, I don't think now, in the kitchen, on the verge of my departure, worried about the safety of my only child, I don't think now is the time for my newly discovered adult male nephew-in-law, who I've only met 2 or 3 times and heard a lot about within the past 6 months. I don't think now is the time that I really want him saying, hey, Mrs. McTavish. Hey, Mrs. McTavish, Sonya's mom. Trey and I aren't just here for the physical delights that your daughter and her best friend since childhood, I'm pretty sure it's since childhood, can offer us. We would be here even if they weren't offering us those physical delights. But I assure you, Sonya's mom, Mrs. McTavish Winter, can I call you Winter? I can assure you, Trey and I can handle the weight of those delightful physical delights. We'd be here either way. And Trey's like, even without the weight of those pleasures, yes, though the weight of those pleasures is something I can bear, I can assure you, Sonya McTavish's mom, Mrs. Winter. Winter! Mrs. McTavish, Sonya's mom. I can handle that weight. Now is not the time, Owen. Please, have a sense of decorum, okay?
Page 207 of the third book, War Flashbacks, because she needs to do her hair again. She designate that time for a trip to the village, make a hair appointment. It was time. I would love to go on a rant about this. I would love to go on a rant about this, and I actually did. I have 30 minutes of unedited footage that I finally settled on after spending like an hour and a half of my morning trying to get my thoughts together about this, that I'm not going to put in this video. I'm not going to do it. But what I said just then, in case you couldn't hear me because I was whispering so quietly that you can't, I was trying to be polite because I was in public, but I spoke so quietly that you cannot understand me at all. What I said was Trey was not established until well after his line of tagless dialogue. It says, Mookie comes in, starts wrestling with Yoda, Jones the dog looks at both of them, and then Jones the dog says, that's a sight of love. That's a sight a man's grateful to see on a Friday night. The way it is written makes it seem like Jones the dog suddenly developed the ability to communicate with humans 234 pages into the third book of the Lost Bride Trilogy. And when I read that, I said, stop. What's happening here? What am I seeing? Then I realized, oh, she's doing that thing again that she does in this book where she'll introduce a character with a line of unattributed dialogue. She'll just throw a line of dialogue in there, no tags, no Trey said, no as they walked into the room, they said, nothing like that. There'll just be dialogue and then a handful of sentences after before we finally figured out who was responsible for the line of dialogue. And this will happen in the middle of a bunch of action, or it'll happen in the middle of an already established tagless dialogue back and forth going on between two other separate characters. And it's just one of those things that I had wanted to point out earlier, but I didn't have evidence for. So I just kind of made the point but left it hanging. Here is the evidence. Here is the evidence. I'm going to put this here. And one day I will actually start putting things on my Patreon. And when I do, I will put the 20 minutes of unedited footage of my thoughts immediately after watching Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, or whatever was in my Frankenstein video where I was ranting for a bit. I think that it was about Frank. I'll put that on there, and I will edit the 30 minutes of unedited footage I currently have about this rant, because I go into grammar, I go into sentence structure, and it's fun for me as someone who likes to write. But I'm moving on because
I have already made that point. Gonna ask you to please ignore my hair. I'm sorry that half this video is me checking in while my hair's drying or something. I'm trying to do the thing where you dry it and it's crunchy, and then you scrunch the crunch and then it comes out all loose and soft. We're gonna see if that works. But page 276 now. Owen just pointed out that every now and then when he walks past the 6 portraits, because they found, and these portraits are very significant, and they're starting to think that maybe the portraits are part of the secret of the rings. Once they find all 7 portraits, maybe they'll find a way to get the rings out of there. And they started talking about numbers and math, and they're like, oh, 7 rings over 200 years. She didn't do 6 rings over 130 years. She did 7 rings over 200 years. And I was like, that's a lot of math, you guys. I don't really want to, that's a lot of math. It's a lot of math. So didn't want to deal with that. And so I'm just letting that brush pass me by. But Owen, he can go through the mirror when Sonya has a vision. And he went with Sonya during the last time the mirror showed up. That's when she saw her dad. And it was her dad in the past when Sonya was a little girl. And he happened to be dreaming about the same party that the mirror had led them through. So Sonya tried to go up to him, but he couldn't see her. And Dobbs couldn't seem to see them either. But she did try to go after the dad, but couldn't reach him. And it's she knew that Sonya was going to be a problem in the future, so she was trying to attack her dad in the past. That was all going on. But after they got out, this was not told to us during the vision, but we found, Owen was like, didn't you notice that her rings would spark? So that's when we find out that Dobbs has been somehow harnessing magic power from the rings, and that she uses to do her big acts of scary magic. And when she uses it, the rings actually spark. And now Owen, again, he's like our little clue finder. They just found the newest portraits and they're lining them up, and they figured out that Sonya just happened to hang these in the exact places and order that all 7 portraits could fit in this exact room, on this exact wall, exactly spaced out in this way. She just started hanging them out there that way without doing any math. They're like, wow, the house is really crazy, and I can't believe you dreamed that, and this is really fate and all of that. Probably part of whatever's going to break the curse. Anyway, Owen just said, mind you, we're 276 pages into the third book, and this has never been mentioned before, but Owen's like, sometimes I walk past the portraits and the rings aren't there. Okay, well, that's cool. I feel like we should have found out about this before, but yeah, so every now and then, I guess, maybe if we're actually connecting dots and telling a good story, it's the rings aren't in the portraits whenever Dobbs is trying to harness her magic, because that's when she'd be using them. But basically, the portraits seem to reflect the actual reality of the brides every now and then, where their stolen wedding rings are not shown on their hands. So that's, on the one hand, I'm like, okay, cool, we're seeding out information, and actually some plot stuff is starting to come through, and I'm excited about that. I'm like, okay, tell me the story, Nora. On the other hand, I do think it's just kind of like, I don't know, it just seems like Owen's the one who's like, and by the way, here's this critical piece of information that I've happened to be holding on to for 3 books. All right, Owen. All right. Oh, yeah. It's all coming together, baby. Now, he is not fully proposing right here, I don't think, because he doesn't want to put her in danger as a bride. I've stopped reading about right here. But he's almost on the point of proposing, so yes, thankfully, the seeds that were planted are starting to come together. Oh, it's like one of our girls' nights movies, only better. Is that the reason we got 2 girls' nights where they had their girly salad and their wine and watched girly movies so that we could establish that they liked girly movies? And this is the third thing, and in storytelling, there's the rule of 3s where you do things 3 times, and then so this is actually good. Yay! Oh, page 285. So, Trey's sister just went into labor, and Trey's over there while the husband's coming back in off a boat. But they were like, cheer us on from the manor, and Sonya's like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. And she's like, oh, we'll go up to the widow's walk, we'll have some wine, then when we come down, we'll light a whole bunch of candles and make one of our big salads. There we go. That's why they were mentioned in such detail twice that seemingly had no bearing on the story. It was because eventually we would need to know that girly movies and big salads and the role they play in this exact evening. Don't know how I feel about this book using a Bible verse but not accurately, attributing it. Especially since by not putting the chapter and verse, which usually follows a quote from the Bible, you kind of take it out of the context of where that came from. By saying Song of Solomon, it just makes it sound like it's from some novel, but it's from Song of Solomon chapter 8 verse 6 particularly. So it pulls away the context, that biblical context from it, and the quote on the page itself is pulled out of context of the actual verse it's from, because those 2 lines are actually just one small portion in the middle of verse 6. So the full verse 6 is, place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame. So that's the end of verse 6. And with that context around it, like the actual full verse, we can see that even though it says death and grave, it's not a scary verse. I can clearly see why that verse was chosen, because this is a book series about a bunch of murdered brides over the course of generations. And so it's like, oh, love is as strong as death. Jealousy as cruel as the grave, death and grave, death and grave. Clearly, this fits the themes of the novel that we are in right now. But it doesn't when you actually look at the context, because it's a verse about the power of love. And actually, if we were to look at the following verse, verse 7, it continues saying, many waters cannot quench love, rivers cannot wash it away. Talking more about the power of love. If one were to give all of the wealth of his house for love, it would be utterly scorned. So that is showing the value of love. And the context of the book that this verse is from is it's the romance chapter of the Bible. It's a whole book of the beauty of romantic love in the context of a marriage. Written in verse, it goes back and forth between the man and the woman talking to one another about the way that they love and desire each other. And so it's a very beautiful romantic book of the Bible about the power and beauty and value of romantic married love. And so taking just one tiny little snippet that says, love is as strong as death and jealousy as cruel as the grave, sticking it at the opening of the third part of a trilogy about a bunch of murdered women, and then not even giving people the context to go look into that verse further, it just sort of, it's like, yeah, I can see that one sentence kind of has the vibe of the story you're trying to tell, but that's not the meaning of that book. And that's why, especially, like, it's important when quoting anything to, one, attribute it correctly so that if people wanted to go look, they could get the full context, especially with like speeches, news, political articles, stuff like that. It's especially important when pulling from the Bible to correctly attribute it so that people can go in and look at the verse itself, look at the verses around it, or even read the full chapter that it's from, so you can say, whoa, what does that mean? Why are we talking about love being as strong as death and jealousy as cruel as the grave? You can go in, get the context, and see, oh, it's a metaphor for the power and strength and value of love. And so that's why it's just like, I don't think I love that they just said Song of Solomon and they didn't give us any of the other tools to get context for that and used that actual verse sort of out of context. I spent 30 minutes trying to say that. I don't know why it takes me so long when I am unscripted to make a single point. My mind vastly wonders. Because who runs the world, Clover? The phone shouted it out. Who run the world? Girls. Thank you, Beyonce. Oh my gosh. Okay, so remember how I told you this book has been mostly about cooking and friendship and people who love each other and they're all proud of each other and they all like the food that each other cooks and they have lovely days together where they go sailing and then they have jokes and Owen is best friends with Trey and he's also in love with Cleo and Cleo is best friends with Sonya and Cleo's in love with Owen and Sonya's in love with Trey. They all love each other and they love the manor and they love the brides and they love their families and they love this town and they just love everything about it and that's why they're fighting so hard to get the house away from Dobbs? Well, Dobbs just woke Owen from a cold slumber, invited him into her boudoir, the gold room, wearing nothing but a silken slip, and was like, Owen, do you want this body? And he was like, oh, baby, I want that body. And it's like, dude, Cleo. And then she's like, oh, you can have it. And the manor should be yours. Sonya's no Poole. She didn't even grow up here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, take this knife and kill them all. Kill Trey, kill your cousin, kill Cleo, and kill the dogs. And then when he walks out of the room, holding a knife, by the way, his dog Jones, his poor little one-eyed dog Jones, who sometimes can talk. Remember when Jones was like, this is a sight a man loves to see, and then we realized it was Trey talking? Yeah, Jones had been hitting his head against the door trying to get in so hard that there was blood on his muzzle, and he hears Clover start playing music really loud, but he can't stop walking down the hall with a big old knife in his hand. And then thankfully, Trey and Sonya woke up from the noise and they're able to get out of the bed before Owen tries to kill them. But just at the last moment, Owen puts the knife to his own throat and is like, I'll kill myself first. And then he's like, Trey, please take this knife out of my hand. I can't do it. I need you to save me before I actually do kill myself. And then they are released. And that's the craziest thing that has happened in this book. And it actually was scary and effective and gross. I was like, stop. Even in your mind, you should not be attracted to that woman. Whew, that was rough. Okay. You came at us really hard, Nora, on page 304 of the third book. I've got this much book left, and we're finally getting actual stakes. That was crazy. That was an actual haunted house story, scary moment. And it's the first actual haunted house scary moment that was effective and unsettling on page 304 of the third book. Don't worry though, because they are going to have tea immediately after this, and I am sure Owen will explain the entire thing in great detail, and every single one of them will give their opinion on it. Then they will talk about how they are going to be stronger than this, and that even though this was a rough night, it's going to be okay because they're going to bring the love, they're going to bring the light, they're going to keep claiming this manor as their own, and even though Hester Dobbs brings the storm, they're going to bring the love and the light, and they love each other, and then they're going to go to bed, and then they're going to be like, wow, rough night, but maybe we should have pizza or something and have a nice night tomorrow and then a Sunday sail. I'm almost positive that's how this interaction is going to go, but for one horrifying moment, it was real unsettling there, like an actual haunted house book. Oh, and he was holding the same knife that Hester Dobbs, the evil witch woman, used to kill Astrid, the first bride. So she was going all out. Okay, I'm on chapter 22. They did drink tea. Owen did give the entire spiel about what happened to him. They did not talk about how they were going to bring the love and the life. Instead, they got the knife out of the house because they're like, this should no longer be in here. So it's locked in Sonia's car in the glove box. They went and watched Hester Dobbs throw herself off of the seawall once more. And it seems like Hester tried to scare Sonia just maybe like a couple chapters before she tried to have Owen kill everybody. Sonia had walked into the room where the 6 bridal portraits were. And instead of the brides in their wedding clothes, which is what it has been this whole time, she saw all of the brides as they were the moment of their death. So Catherine's wearing a thin nightgown and she's basically turning cold. Clover is naked because she was giving birth when she died, and she died in childbirth, so it's just like naked and covered in blood. So it's just very sad. And then she watches as like the paintings, the like skin rots off of their skulls and they start to decompose, and Hester Dobbs is whispering in her ears like, this is going to happen to you and I'm going to get you too, and like an evil viscous liquid is creeping across the floor towards her. But that happened at like 2:58 in the morning, and then at 3 the gong rings, and the things that happen at 3 a.m. every single time happen again. The piano where Astrid plays her ghostly music each night starts playing. You can hear Mary, the dead Irish maid, like coughing up in the servants' quarters, and Hester Dobbs throws herself off of the seawall. So what they've realized is that it almost seems like 3 a.m. is when the manor takes control back from Dobbs, and then Dobbs has to work her way up to being able to do something again. So they decide to watch Hester throw herself off the seawall, and then everybody goes to bed. Sonia's like, you're still my favorite cousin. And he's like, thank you guys all so much. This was horrible. And Cleo is like, you were bespelled. I am not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong, because she basically she assaulted your mind. Like, this is not on you. And he's like, but I still do want to apologize because I wanted to do the dirty deed with her, and if she had not had killing you be a prerequisite, I would have done it. And for me, I am not the kind of guy who fools around. When I'm with somebody, I'm with somebody. And she's like, again, you are okay. An evil witch woman used magic fog to try and seduce you, and you stood up against her, and you did not murder all of your friends and families and the dogs and taste the blood. I forgot that was part of it. Got really dark. Got really dark after 3 books. I did not know Nora was capable of going to those depths. In that moment, he's like, what I want to tell you is that I love you. And she's like, I love you too. This is Cleo and Owen talking. And he's like, I know you're not going to move out of this house until you can have a painting studio that rivals this one. So give me a little bit of time to build you one. And she's like, what are you talking about? You asking me to move in with you? And he's like, yes. And then we'll get married. And she's like, we don't have to get married. And he's like, no. If we're doing this, I want the commitment. Like, if I'm building you a studio, I want to know that you're in it with me. So what's happened here is that basically Trey and Owen have like proposed but not proposed to both Cleo and Sonya. Sonya is a Poole, and if she becomes a bride, she will be a Poole bride and therefore in direct danger of being murdered after her wedding day. Cleo could also potentially be a victim because Owen is a Poole, and if Owen and Cleo get married, she will be a bride and then be in direct danger of Dobbs. I don't know if the book is actually going to go here, but it is sort of shaping up that one or both of them might become brides by the end of this book. Gotta say, Still having a terrible time, but it is starting to pick up, thankfully, as we get toward the end, and it's actually starting to have plot. It's starting to have plot. Oh, I'm in a home two suites, by the way. I'm out of town, and so I'm finishing this book while I'm in the hotel. And some things are coming full circle. It's just nice that things are actually starting to pan out a little bit. But remember, if you were with me during the first two books, how her very first client, after quitting her job because her dirty cheating fiance was trying to besmirch her good name by design, and the owners who loved her were not able legally to fire him yet. And she went off on her own, and her very first client was a client called Baby Mine, a baby company where they sell baby things. Guess what? Anna, Trey's sister, just had a baby, and they were able to give her a gift basket made of goods from Baby Mine. So it's all coming full circle. It's all coming full circle. So it's all coming full circle, baby. Mine. Honestly, okay. Reading this, it is frustrating how many details there are that don't pertain to the actual plot, but it's also like I'm in a section where they're really doing a good job of claiming more and more rooms in the manor for themselves. And that's been a big part of this book, where they're like, every room we claim and every room we start to make use of, that's another room that Dobbs can't have. And it's our way of claiming the manor, and it's our way of fighting back against her, as well as not being afraid. Like, she finished going through all the furniture in the ballroom and figured out where she wanted it to go so that she could have the ballroom set up. And then she went up into Molly's. Then she went up into Molly's room, and Molly's the maid. And they got that all beautifully set up so that Molly, the dead Irish ghost maid, could have a nice room. And then Clover helped them figure out who each of the other rooms belonged to, so that they were able to get the next room, which belonged to a maid named Rita, who was an older woman. So they got that set up with furniture that was from the attic that would be more suited to like an older woman. Then they got Eleanor, the ghost maid who waters all the plant. They got her room set up, and they put art in there and cute tables and nice lamps. And it's like, that part's fun to hear about them doing nice things like that. Then they had all their friends over to move the furniture out of the ballroom and into the attic and down into the basement. And they just set up the ballroom, and it's got big, bright, bold furniture and plenty of space to dance. And they're getting ready for the Christmas party. And I think I'm in a little bit more charity with this section of the book, because actual plot has been happening. So I feel more invested, because like, we got some crazy things happening with Hester Dobbs, and we're getting to the end of the book, so things are actually moving forward, and it feels like each action and each scene, even if it's more of a let's discuss furniture scene, has more meaning, because it is coming toward the end. It is wrapping up. It's like, the more they do this now, as things actually are getting moved, it's like they are claiming rooms for themselves. And it's like, that is a way to fight back against Dobbs. So it's like all the things we talked about and talked about and talked about and talked about and was said over and over again actually feels like it's being pushed into effect now. Someone in one of my comments said that this book isn't a horror story. It's a fairy tale trying to disguise itself as a horror story, because it's not written with any of the tension or anxiety that would cause fear, except that scene with Owen. But rather, it's written as if Nora Roberts is describing the magic castle full of invisible servants that you see in Beauty and the Beast. It's the perfect dream of anybody who's ever wanted to own a Victorian mansion. And it's like, okay, I don't have enough money to buy a historical Victorian mansion and restore it, but what if I were to inherit it? Then you gotta ask yourself, okay, you inherit it, but now you owe property taxes and you have to spend $1 million getting it livable again. But no, you don't have to worry about it. This house is not dilapidated. It's actually in great repair, and you don't have to worry about taxes, because the person you inherited it from set up an account so that you never have to worry about taxes, and also set up an account so you never have to worry about repairs. You're totally in the clear. You're a wealthy woman now. You own a beautiful house, which you don't have to clean, even if you cook big meals, and unless you want to, because you're trying to help out the ghost. And you get to set up the beautiful ballroom, and you get to decorate each room with all this gorgeous, vintage, valuable wood furniture that has been gathered and collected in this manor over 200 years. 200 years worth of vintage furniture is in this house, and you get to put it in any room that you want to, and set up a game room, and you have a home gym, and you get to get a workout in. Sure, maybe the evil witch woman Hester Dobbs will ring the servant's bell and make you scared while you're in the gym, but that's just even better for your workout. So it's like, right now, because we're getting to the end and it does feel like things are more intentional, I'm like, yeah, yeah, man, I would like to live in this house, but that's the problem. I have always wanted to live in this house. It's just the fact that the true actual content of this book is completely opposed to the plot, the supposed plot of the book. Like, the supposed plot of the book is a woman tries to set seven murdered brides free from the ghost of an evil witch woman. But the actual content of the book is freelance graphic design, becoming best friends and lovers with best friends and lovers, and making really, really good food and eating good food and living in a very cute town in Maine. One of my friends was like, it's in Maine. What if it's just Pennywise moonlighting as... I don't know what I'm saying now. I gotta stop. But all I'm saying is now we've reached toward the end of the book, and I'm not minding the furniture mentions as much because it's like after 327 pages of them talking about going through furniture and claiming the rooms, we're actually seeing that happen, and we're seeing how it's affecting Dobbs and hopefully gearing up for a finale. Okay, like things are really heating up. Page 328. Sonya's doing a lovely yoga workout after a big day of moving furniture. She's really getting those muscles stretched, and she's doing those poses, and it just feels really nice. She finds herself almost in like in a trance-like dream. And the person's like, all right, warrior pose number 1, stretch, warrior pose number 2, and you're no warrior, Sonya. You should probably throw yourself off the seawall and die. It was Hester Dobbs. She took over the TV. And so all of a sudden, the yoga person, she's like doing yoga poses, and she's like, you should just throw yourself off the seawall, Sonya. And then Sonya's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then she looks at the TV, and the lady on the TV screen has shark's teeth. And then she's like, try this one, Sonya, and like cracks her back and like sticks her head between her legs and then comes up the other side and is like a little tiny scary pretzel. And then Hester's like, fine, if you're not going to do that, die alone in the gym. And then turns off all the lights, and there's like a hissing sound from all the like rubber stretchy bands that people use for fitness. I don't remember what they're called right now. And like, it's getting serious in here. Scrunching out my hair now. Hopefully the whole scrunch the crunch thing works. I put a lot of mousse in my hair, and my hair can't really handle a lot of heavy products. So this might have been a no-go, but I'm spending 2 days in a hotel, so it really doesn't matter. Anyway, 342, in celebration of Sonya getting out of the gym and standing down Hester Dobbs, because Hester was like, I'm gonna lock you in here, nobody's gonna find you, and Sonya realizes that, like, she left her phone on the kitchen counter, and Trey's gone to work, and Cleo sleeps till noon. She's like, these scary snake cords might actually kill me, and then nobody will know if I'm alive. But then she's like, you know what? You're a stupid lady, Hester, and I think you're dumb, and you should just face me right now. I'll punch you in the face, and we'll see who's the real mistress of Lost Bride Manor. And then all the other ghosts laughed at Hester Dobbs, and the lights turned back on, and Sonya had... Oh, it did not help this situation. Okay, anyway, Sonya was like, yeah, you stupid bully, see how you like it. And then all the ghosts laughed at Hester, and then the lights turned on, and she kind of like saved herself. And Trey was there, and they had a big talk about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love you, and everybody kissed each other. Only Trey and Sonya kissed. But suffice it to say, in celebration, Cleo is making lasagna and a cake for dinner. And she said, I'm going to make a cake. Yes, I'm going to make a cake. Now several hours have passed. And she's like, by the way, Sonya, I'm going to make a cake. So it's established 3 times that a cake will be made. But she's also making bread. And they go through this whole process about letting the bread rise and what that means. And how do they know how to do that? And they're like, it's science. I don't know. But Sonya's saying, like, acting like she's never made bread before. But one of the big plot points of book 1 was that she made beer bread. It was her first time, and she did fine, and she made beer bread. I don't know. I think if I do this again, I need to make sure I'm actually using curl cream and a gel and not just mousse. No, she says specifically, like, Cleo says, I really like the whole kneading process, you should try it. And Sonya says maybe someday with adult supervision, as if she didn't already make beer bread. I actually finished, sorry, this has nothing to do with the book, but I figured I'd brought you on half this journey. I might as well finish it. I finally scrunched it out. And okay, it did turn out better than I thought. Now the reason what I'm trying to do, again, this has nothing to do with the book, is I got a new hair dryer and I got the curl brush that I kept seeing on TikTok. This is not sponsored. This is just me being influenced by other marketing influences. And I was like, let me see if that works, because my hair's kind of curly now and it never used to be, and I need to figure out how to make it work. So I tried, and I saw the videos and they were like, first you have to put curl cream on, then you have to put mousse on, then you have to put, no, first you do mousse while you're plopping your hair, then you have to put curl cream on when it's wet, then you have to dry it, and then you have to brush it through with the brush, then you have to put the gel on it, then you diffuse it so that it has a cast, then once that's had a chance to dry and you let it sit for a little while, you scrunch it out with oil, and then you've got nice big wavy hair. I didn't have half the products I needed. I just used mousse over and over again, and I thought, well, we'll just see what happens. And it actually did work somewhat better than I thought. So maybe I will keep trying to do this, and maybe I will finally be able to style my now wavy hair. My hair used to be straight up until about 2 years ago, and now it is wavy. So we'll see. Again, this has nothing to do with Nora Roberts' The Lost Bride trilogy. I'm just updating you since you were there when my hair was at its crispiest. And now here we are. I do not understand the relationship dynamics. Page 372. Where are we? So, things have been going great. They figured out the layout of the game room. They found some excellent vintage, antique furniture that they hired someone from in town to reupholster. It's actually the cousin or sister of the person where Sonya adopted Yoda, her dog. And that lady's like, hey, these ghosts don't bother me. I used to work in a haunted castle in Ireland, so I'm cool. It's whatever. All of this is great. Sonya offered to do her website, and she's like, you're a sly one. My website is pretty outdated. I'll get back to you. And then after all that fun times, Cleo and Sonya went outside, and for some reason, Cleo and Sonya were like, oh, I love you, everybody's happy, and they hugged, and then Hester Dobbs sent a bolt of black lightning down, but they're like, look at that. She's trying to be scary, but she couldn't even burn the grass. And then Cleo said, I want to show you the secret painting I'm working on. And she's been working on a secret painting for several chapters now. So they go upstairs to her studio, and as they go up, Hester Dobbs is trying all of her old tricks. She's ringing the doorbell, she's opening the servant's door, she's slamming doors on the 3rd floor. There's a lot of angry rumblings coming from the gold room, but they go into Cleo's studio, and Cleo takes the paint cover off, and it is a gorgeous painting of all of the brides together, standing side by side, connected, holding hands or hugging each other's waists. They're just one big line of connected women, a unit standing firm against Hester Dobbs. And Cleo's like, this is for you. It's for the manor. And it's more than payment for the most wonderful summer of my life, a summer to paint, a summer to learn how to cook, the summer I met the man I loved. I love you, Sonya. This has been a wonderful time. You're my best friend. And Sonya's like, I love you, Cleo. You're my best friend. This is such a beautiful gift. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Let's take this downstairs so that it can dry, because it can't be framed yet. It's still wet. So it can dry in the same room as the portraits of the brides. But as they go to do that, all of a sudden they hear a horrible sound and they feel like a big boom, and there's a shockwave as if a bomb was just dropped, and they look outside and they see the horrible black bird that Hester Dobbs sends out sometimes, and it's sweeping back and forth, and its terrible red eyes are glaring at them, and it slams into the window, and it leaves a streak of red behind, and then it circles again, and then it slams into the window, and they're like, we don't know if it's gonna get in, oh no, and then it does it a 3rd time, but finally that's all it seems to have, because it starts raining, and it disappears with the rain. So it seems like the evil witch woman Hester Dobbs, who haunts the gold room, is really not happy with the solidarity between Cleo and Sonya, the way that they keep taking control of the manor, claiming it room by room, and this beautiful painting that symbolizes what will be the end of Hester Dobbs, the unity between the brides, because the brides are all sisters, the way Cleo and Sonya are all sisters, and it's all wonderful. And once the bird goes away, they can hear the dogs and Trey and Owen running up the stairs, and it's like, they're like, hey, are you okay? We saw the bird. And they're like, we are okay. She's mad about the painting. And they're like, the painting's beautiful, Cleo. And Cleo's like, thank you. And they're like, oh, this is so good. And Trey's like, I'll buy it if it's going up for sale at your art show. And she's like, no, this belongs to the manor. And he's like, you know what? That's right. Then here's where things got weird. And I'm going to go a little bit further back than I need to really set the scene. So somebody, we're never told who, just a random person makes a statement that says, I bet this is what set her off. Wow, Cleo. Then, picking up with Trey, I'll second that. Trey stepped over to the painting. This is just a lot of wows. They're together. A wall of together. If you're putting this in the show, I'm putting in a preemptive bid. It's Sonia's, it's Astrid's, Catherine's, Marianne's, Agatha's, Lisbeth's, Clover's, Joanna's. It's the Manors. Owen turned her. Come here, gorgeous. When he'd finished kissing her, remember, Cleo's the person he was kissing, by the way, Trey brushed him aside. I'm seconding that too. Cupping Cleo's chin in his hand, he brushed his lips on hers. That is the third time in this book that Cleo and Trey have kissed on the lips in front of Sonya, and nobody's mentioning it. That's why it's weird. Okay, this is actually a good example of what I'm talking about, where everything is written as if it was a note somebody was taking for themselves to like remind them of things later, but then we just got the unexpanded notes. Like this right here. They sold a painting and it's like sailing pals. The wife mom of the father and son on the sailboat came in with a couple of friends. Now, you could read it as the wife/mom. I'm getting a little nervous because I'm on page 389. There's only this much book left and it's late September. Sonya is thinking about decorating for Halloween. And at this point, we still need to have them decorate for Halloween, have the big Christmas party in the ballroom, get the purple couches back for the game room, have Sonya find all 7 rings, get Astrid's portrait for the to finish the series of Lost Brides, and get Hester Dobbs out of the manor so that they can turn the gold room into a big display portrait thing for all of the dead ghosts. A lot of that is stuff that really isn't that important, but finding the 7 rings and kicking Hester Dobbs out is. And I honestly don't know if there's time for that. Okay, here's actually my guess. My guess is the book is going to do what it does sometimes, where it builds up an event and they talk about it for a long time for how it's going to go. And then the event happens in like 2 sentences, like when they had their first girly movie night. I have already made that point, so we're going to move on. They talk about an event a whole bunch and prep for the event, and then the event is like, and then they had the event. So, and then the event has no bearing on the plot. It's just like what's happening in their day-to-day life. So my thought is, something crazy has got to happen really, really, really soon where they find the portrait. So I think like probably within the next page or so, hopefully the next 5 pages max, something's got to give. They're going to find either the portrait or the rings themselves, cast Hester Dobbs out, and then everything else, decorating for Halloween. Oh, here's what I think. They're going to decorate for Halloween and be a proper spooky Halloween haunted mansion, #Hallmark Halloween. And then that's when Hester Dobbs is going to go all out. Maybe Trey will actually propose to her, or no, okay, this is what I want to happen. I want Trey and Sonya and Owen and Cleo to be like, I know how we can fight Hester Dobbs on her own ground. Let's go to the courthouse, get married right now. Then we will have 2 Poole brides fighting against Hester Dobbs. She's going to have 2 targets, and maybe then she'll go full corporeal or something and they'll be able to rip the rings off her fingers. That's one solution, but I actually don't think we have enough time for that to happen with the pace these people make decisions. So what I think is going to happen instead, I don't have the particulars in mind. They're going to decorate the house for Halloween, and once it's a proper Halloween haunted house, Hester is going to go absolutely insane because they do talk about how she's so mad and crazy she might just snap one day and try to attack Sonya even though she's not a bride yet. So I think that's what's going to happen, and in that moment Sonya's going to be able to get the rings off of her, and that's going to take up probably, I would say that's going to probably take up that much of the book. Then I'm going to guess that these last few pages are going to be them saying basically, Then they had a really great party for Christmas. Then they got the purple couches. Then they had a beautiful life together. Everybody got married. The end. And then the acknowledgement section. Okay, page 390. Maybe my theory is correct and something crazy is going to happen within the next 2 to 5 pages, because she just looked out the window and she saw the groundskeeper's ghost like pet the dogs and then tip his cap at her and go away. And Trey is concerned because that's an escalation. So things are escalating, and hopefully they will continue to escalate and we can actually finish this book and they will set the brides free, because this is called the Lost Bride Trilogy, as in 3 books. But a part of me is afraid that she is going to end it on a cliffhanger and there is going to be a sequel trilogy to this. And if that's the case, I'm not reading it. I'm telling you right now, I will not read that series. Oh, I'm so good at guessing. Page 394. Hester Dobbs comes swirling down the library stairs and she says, "I have given you time. I have given you warnings. You will pay for not heeding those warnings. Your time here is at an end." "No," says Sonya. It doesn't say says Sonya. It just says, "No, but yours is." As Sonya pulled out the stone, the hag stone she's been carrying around with her for a while, Dobbs swept an arm through the turbulent air. It struck like a fist. The shock of pain radiated as the blow lifted Sonya off her feet and shot her back. With her face on fire from the impact, she hit the floor hard enough to steal her breath, and the stone flew harmlessly out of her hand. "Blood. I will bathe you in Poole blood. Generations of it. You will beg for mercy. You'll drown in it." As Sonya started to scramble up, another blow slammed on her back against a bookcase. She tasted blood at her vision grade as she slid bonelessly to the floor. Then she was lifted off of her feet higher and higher until her body rammed into the ceiling. Rammed into the ceiling. This is a 2-story turret library. She's way up there. Desperate, dizzy from the pain, she tried to crawl, tried to kick, but her body rotated until she dangled helplessly. Like a panther playing with a toy with its prey, Dobbs circled below. "How shall I end you, I wonder? Shall I conjure a rope, slip a noose over her head? Shall I simply snap your neck?" Stunned by pain, frozen in fear, Sonya saw her blood drip, watched Dobbs hold out a hand to catch those drips, then, smiling, lick the blood off her palm. "Kill me. You break the curse. Break the curse. You'll lose. Will I? Will I?" Her eyes darted as she began to pace. "No true Poole," she murmured. "Imposter. Usurper. Survive," Sonya ordered herself. "Just survive. You tasted my blood. You've tasted Poole blood. You know I'm a Poole, and I'm not a bride." Okay. See, I told you though. 2 to 5 pages. Page 407. "I told you it was gonna happen at Halloween. I told ya." And we're gonna get a nice little epilogue with everybody at Christmas. Page 412. They found Astrid's portrait. What they all decided was if they can't boot Hester Dobbs, the evil dead witch woman, out of the gold room by Halloween, that's the night. That's the line. And they are gonna go in there, all 4 of them, and like beat her up. Just gonna beat her up proper, because they threw that rock through her and it got blood on it because it actually hurt her. No, and then Cleo had gotten Hobbs away from Sonya by shooting her with a BB gun full of crystal beads. Those had Hester's blood on it too. So they're gonna go and they're going to physically fist fight Hester Dobbs, the evil witch woman who has haunted this house for 200 years and nightly at 3 a.m. throws her body off of the seawall to bind the curse and hold the house in her blood, and who murdered 7 women. They're gonna physically fight her with their fists. And probably love and the power of friendship. Oh, and the paintings have been back and forth. Like, one will be painted by Colin, the other will be painted by Sonya's dad. They were the 2 twins who were separated at birth, Clover's boys. But the final bride, Astrid, came through and it has both of their signatures. Oh, it all comes full circle. But actually, it's coming right along. I was worried because I was like, how are they going to get all of this stuff taken care of in the amount of time we have left? But she's just blazing a path through it. Oh my gosh, I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to propose and get married to both the girls and make them both brides right before. Okay, listen. So they're all going to go in, the 4 of them, and it says and it says up here, we need to bait her. Assuming she doesn't come hard that day or the day before, we need to bait her into blowing some of her power energy. Drain the battery some. Owen nodded. Good call. Yes. But then it said, that's for you and me. And then they were like, no, don't do that. And then they're like, Sonya, how many times have you, Cleo, or just you had to deal with her on her own? So it could just be that the boys are going to run into the gold room and try and fist fight Hester Dobbs themselves. I'm hoping they go with proposing as a distraction, but that's just what I'd like to happen, so I would be considered right.
He proposed, but the wedding's gonna be in June, so I was wrong.
Just marry me, Sonya. Build a family with me. Build a life with me. Yes. So much yes. Editing Summer. I think what I need to do is go from wherever I stopped at the last one and get caught up to the fact that they're like, she had that nightmare and she was working out, and then the gym started attacking, and they've all just been very calmly trying to get through this big attack that seems to be on every single level, and then hop in and be like, after I explain that Cleo's by herself and her door is locked and the cats and dogs are trying to get inside, they heard her scream. Explain that it's a big thing from Dobbs, where she rang the bells, then she rang more bells, then she rang them really loud, then she started throwing weight, then the TV came on with blood, then they couldn't get the door open, then they could, but then they had to hold it open so they could squeeze through. It looks like the stairs are on fire.
No.
Then hop in and say, she hesitated when she saw the flame lick up between the treads. Then she heard Cleo scream. That was all it took to have her bounding up. At the top, Trey outpaced her. Oh, I'm sure. Hey, so I made it to the end of my footage, and I'm pretty sure I just jumped right into my issues with the epilogue and didn't even go over the finale of the story, didn't even cover how Hester Dobbs was defeated. So let me go ahead and go over that. But quick personal update. Sorry it's messy. I'm in the middle of cleaning as well as trying to edit this video that was supposed to be done the first or second week of January, and now it's Sunday, March 8th at 1 a.m., and I'm about to lose an hour to daylight savings time, and I'm finally at the last 13 minutes of footage. All my DVDs, they've been moved into the house that I'm going to be sharing with my fiance, nay, with my husband, in less than 2 months, which is very exciting. The wedding is coming down the line. There, in the reflection of the TV, that's a pile of laundry. I've tilted the camera away so you don't have to see it. Behind me, some sandals I got from the thrift store for my honeymoon, and a box of boutonnieres for the groomsmen. So my bad if it's a little sloppy in here. I have a lot going on, but let me go ahead and go over how Hester Dobbs was defeated, just in case I never circled back to that. So, Halloween night. They find the final portrait of Astrid, and they're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Sonya, we've discovered through a couple of instances with the mirror that you can actually summon it. There was a moment when they were decorating the basement or the game room, and she was like, man, I wish I could see what this place was like in the past. Then the mirror showed up, and she walked through, and it wasn't like a wicked evil vision of one of the brides dying. It was just a beautiful memory of the day Molly, the dead Irish maid, arrived in the house. And she was 16, she was very pretty, and she was so happy to be working in this beautiful house. And they're like, look at her, she was so alive, and little did she know she was going to get sick 3 years later and die. But what a beautiful, sweet memory for me to know more about the house and understand it. She stepped out of the mirror and she's like, guys, this was beautiful. And then I think there was another thing that happened kind of similar to that. And they were like, okay, Sonya, the mirror seems to be here to help you. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you summon the mirror in each of the spots where one of the brides died. And we're going to do it in reverse order because that's the order that we found the paintings. And the brides do have to die because we don't want to alter time. Because remember, this is a time traveling portal into which they can step into the past. This is an actual time traveling portal in this book, by the way. Time travel's part of it. They can't save the brides, but they can get the rings from the brides before Hester Dobbs gets them. So if they go in reverse order, then they can get the rings without changing any events. If they just hopped straight to Astrid, got her ring, that would mean that Hester never got any of the other rings, and that would change the timeline of the universe at large, one supposes. So they can't do that. And probably people who were born would never be born, and then we'd have a grandfather paradox where if Sonya was never born to defeat Hester Dobbs and steal the ring from Astrid, then Hester Dobbs was never defeated, which means Sonya would be born. And so, you know what I mean? It has to happen this way. So that's what they do, basically. They give themselves 3 hours between midnight, Halloween, and 3 a.m. when Hester Dobbs throws herself off of the seawall, because that's when the manor resets and her like hold is reestablished on the manor. So Sonya and Owen will be going into the mirror. Cleo and Trey are going to be standing guard outside, hoping for the best and, you know, handling any tantrums from Dobbs in the meantime. They go to Joanne, the most recent bride, her Uncle Colin's wife. They get the ring from her. Then they go to Clover. Some of the ghosts talk to her. Some of them don't see that she's there. Clover, her ghost DJ grandma, of course, does recognize and like talk to her because they have a bond. And they get the ring from her. They go in reverse order. Everything's going fine. Sometimes they're in the past for what feels like 5 minutes, but they were actually gone for 20. So there's a little bit of a fluctuation with time. So, you know, time in the real world is eating up a little bit more quickly. So, they don't have a lot. So they get to Astrid, they get the ring, and apparently after they get each ring, Hester's like throwing a fit because the rings are disappearing off her fingers. And she's been pulling power from the rings to, do her little evil ghost stuff. And so she's now powerless, and they've defeated the spirit of Hester Dobbs that lives in the gold room. But now they have to deal with the version of Hester that keeps throwing herself off the seawall. So they go outside and they do some stuff and they lure Hester into a circle and then they light her on fire and then she's gone. And the house is free and they can see all the ghosts and they can see all the brides. The brides are free as well. And they're like, hey, Sonya, do you mind if we stay here? And she's like, listen, this house is also your house. Mi casa es su casa. So if you want to stay here, I would love for you to stay here. Those who want to leave can also leave. Be free and have a great time. And then all the grooms get to walk off with the brides they never got to spend lives with because their brides were murdered. And everybody's happy. And I think Molly, the dead Irish maid, is going to stay, so they still don't have to worry about chores unless they're like, please, Molly, let us clean the dishes this one time. Let us give you a break. I think Molly's going to stay. And then with that, I believe I've covered everything I was missing. And we drop into the final line of the final chapter before the epilogue. Enjoy. Sonya did this. She threw her arms around Trey, then pointed at Owen. Kiss Cleo. And you, kiss me. Right here, right now. First thing we do in here, bring the love and the light. If you insist. When their lips met, Clover added some Huey Lewis in the News with the power of love. Sonya felt it burst through her. The love and the light. I'm basically finished. I am reading the epilogue now. Here's the thing. Right before Sonya went and got the 7 rings, Trey proposed to her, and so she had 8 rings on her finger by the end of it. And when he was proposing to her, he was like, hey, what do you say we get married in June, right? So, and she was like, yes, I say yes to June. She said yes, so much yes. I say yes to June. I say yes to you. Let's get married in June. Remember, one of the things that was significantly discussed for a while was the Christmas party, and we just left off at Halloween. And the epilogue picks up in June. If they don't mention the Christmas party that was mentioned at least 8 times in this book when it was already June. It was June in the story when she started thinking about having a Christmas party. Then she started buying Christmas gifts. Then she talked to Bree, who works at the restaurant, and was like, will you cater the event? And Bree was like, I think I will. And I'll have my boyfriend, the Hard Rock, or whatever his name is, his band's name is, be the entertainment for that evening. And then Bree and her boyfriend helped move furniture on that day that everybody was moving furniture and getting the ballroom in order. And he was like, this is magnificent. I can't wait for the time we have the big bash in the ballroom. This is the first time our band's going to have played in a place with chandeliers. We're going to rock this joint and blow the doors off the place. And the epilogue starts in June. Are they not even having the Christmas party at all? Yeah, and look at this. So Cleo is fully engaged To Owen, because it says Cleo smiled smugly at the ring, vintage and flashy, on her finger. Plenty of time yet, but the house is coming along. Today we drink to the magnificent bride and her handsome groom, which he is, as I had a peek when I went out before.
Cleo, if you don't stop flirting with Sonya's fiance and kissing him in front of her, I swear, you are not... I was going to say invited to the party, but you don't even want to be at my party, Cleo. You're too busy painting a million photos and working on children's illustrations. Cleo, what I'm just saying is it's not a very good move as a friend to kiss your best friend's fiance 3 times in front of her and then be like, and he's looking fine, the morning of the wedding. Cleo, please, I need you not to talk about him anymore. I need you not to look at him. That's not your man. Get out of here, Cleo. Get out of here.
They didn't mention the Christmas party at all. They didn't mention the Christmas party at all. And you know what? I think that is an apt metaphor for what is wrong with this book. So much buildup for useless things. Time wasted on aspects of the story that, sure, sort of build the world, but don't add anything to the plot, but instead pad it with this overwhelming amount of fat that needs desperately to be trimmed, and then nothing comes of it. This happened over and over again. They spend 8 bazillion years looking at furniture, and then in a scene where the furniture could be useful, it's like they spent a whole bunch of time describing a specific washstand. I have already made that point, so we're going to move on. It's and that same thing, that's basically what happened with the Christmas thing. We started talking about Christmas at the halfway point through the book. They planned the whole event. They hired a caterer. They hired a musician. It made it seem like it was going to be something important or significant or might have some relevance to the plot. And then you get to the end of the book and we don't even get to see the Christmas party. The Christmas party isn't even mentioned in the epilogue. And you would think it would even say one sentence to be like, and Sonya had the Christmas party. And I actually think that is a poetic full circle moment to have Sonya be the first bride who's for sure not going to get murdered in Lost Bride Manor. That's a great way to end this series. I have no issues with the epilogue being the wedding, but what I do have issue with is that it picks up in June after ending at Halloween and doesn't even have the decency to have a lead-in paragraph to be like, the months passed quickly and joy was found in the manor in a way it hadn't been before. Sonya and Trey and Cleo and Owen threw the best Christmas bash that everybody had, and the whole town came and had a great time. And in February, the museum opened to the public for the first time. Oh yeah, because I don't even think I told you that at some random chicken salad dinner that Trey, Sonya, Cleo, and Owen had with Ace, Deuce, and their wives, Ace was like, hey, we hear you're making a museum room for whenever you're done dealing with Hester Dobbs, and I've always wanted to make a museum for the town, and would you guys be interested in curating a museum? And Sonya and Cleo were like, you know what we'd love to do? Curate a museum on top of everything else that's going on. They mention it several times where they check in with Ace, and Ace is like, hi, I've spoken to the town council. Hey, we found an old school building that we think would be perfect for the museum. We just have to work on the zoning laws. And so it, like the Christmas thing, is another big plan that's never really resolved. I think on the page where they're like the love and the light, that final page, there is a mention of the Gold Room Museum where they're like, wow, time to make the Gold Room Museum, which is really all we get there. But then none of these other big plans that we spent a lot of time going over are resolved. and Ace and Deuce and Trey were all there, and everybody was happy and they loved each other and everybody was just having a great time. And so June came on quickly, there being peace without Hester constantly bothering them, and then pick up exactly where they left off. That would have been a good way to tie up all of the random useless loose threads that made up this tapestry. But instead, I know the Christmas party isn't important. It was never important to the plot, but that's the problem. We shouldn't have even known that there was going to be a Christmas party or a museum in town, or that she was going to make Maddie's website, or any of the clients, or had to read a full client email when we never even got to read a diary entry from one of the brides, when a diary from a bride was found in a drawer. And instead of giving us any insight into who these women were, besides like dialogue chunks where the bride would look Sonya dead in the eye and be like, I was going to be a happy woman here. I loved my husband and he loved me and we loved each other, but unfortunately Hester Dobbs murdered me. She murdered me, Sonya, and you have to find my ring. She murdered me and she stole the happy life I was going to have, the happy life where I was in love with my husband and he was in love with me and we loved each other, and all of us were in love and we were going to have a life filled with love, and my sons and my children and my babies that I were born, they were going to be good babies and I was going to have a good life here, but she stole my ring and you have to get it back. The amount of times they loved each other and he loved me and I loved him and we were going to be in love is stated in this series is insane. And so rather than giving us a chance to know anything about any of the brides, like we get a little bit about Clover because she is actually a character we interact with, but it's so surface level about any of them. And we had an opportunity to get to know a bride through her own writing. And instead they had an editing summer. I want you to find I want you to find it, and I want you to show them on the screen what I'm talking about right now. They had Sonya or Trey or somebody, they had one of them read the diary, the first page of the diary aloud, which was, again, her saying how excited she was to be a bride and how much she loved her husband, and had that in quotes as someone reading it aloud, rather than even giving us like a different font for us to read the journal entry ourselves. No, it was just us reading somebody else reading it aloud.
Sonya opened the book and read, and this whole thing is Marianne's first diary entry. It is in dialogue tags as Sonya reading it, and it's like, I begin this diary given to me by my dear mamma on the morning of my wedding. In a few hours I will be Mrs. Hugh Poole, Marianne Louise Poole, the wife of the man I love. Today marks the beginning of my new life. In the days to come, I will write here my thoughts, my life, my joys, and though I cannot imagine any on this glorious day, my sorrows. I will keep my diary and the ones that follow in the desk in the pretty sitting room, my pretty sitting room, as mistress of Poole Manor. As I vow to be a good and loving wife to my husband, I also promise to be a good and caring mistress of the home that will become mine. Sonya carefully turned the page and continued. Others have lived in the manor, have tended to it before me. I sometimes think I can hear them or sense them as I walk through to learn my duties here. I feel welcome from them, except I think my nerves over the great responsibility make me foolish, as I do feel something that does not welcome. I will not dwell on that, or on the war that rages through the country. Today I become a bride. Here I vow with all my heart to be loyal and loving, to be kind, to remember always this happy day when my love, always my love, becomes my husband. I will pack this book in my trousseau, and the next I write in it, I write as a wife.
And then a couple chapters later, Sonya's like, I'm almost finished with Marianne's diary, and she hasn't said anything that's useful about the 7 rings.
We hear nothing about the diary, I don't think, until here on page 123. Sonya says, and we found Marianne's journal. I've read most of it, and it's almost like seeing her. And that's it. That's all we get about Marianne's diary.
Then why even bring it? Then why even bring the diary into this? And want to know what we got instead? Want to know what we got instead? A full, and Summer, editing Summer, put this on the screen as well. We got a full business proposal email from Sonya to a client.
Okay, so here we are, page 229. We're going to focus on the email down here, but context you're missing. Sonya met a small shop owner who makes handmade soaps. And the lady makes beautiful soaps that Sonya really likes, but she thinks her really slow website and bad social media is not holding back her business. Her son, however, is like, it is holding back our business. So the son's on board, the mom is hesitant. And Sonya hadn't been as excited about a project since she landed the writer account. Unlike the writer project, she knew this one could and likely would take years. So she's invested in this big new project. She thinks a lot about it. She talks a lot about it. Down here, we get a full proposal email that I am going to read to you. It's in a different font. We get to read the whole thing. It is given the dignity that dead bride Marianne was never given. We were not allowed to read Marianne's word in her own hand, and by own hand, I mean a different typeface. No, but instead we do get this. Carrie, it was good to hear from you. The products your family makes are exceptional. I love using them and enjoy giving them as gifts. In my opinion, they deserve a better showcase. I've attached my idea for the design of your homepage. It's just the look I envision. This is something you could absolutely do yourself. The photos, the dreamier colors, the clearer font. You're welcome to take this idea and run with it. However, what I don't think you can do is improve the bones of your website, the setup, the speed, the need to have it work smoothly on mobile devices. I can offer you that service and improve your social media exposure. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'd also suggest a logo design with consistency that illustrates the creativity and care behind your products. Please let me know if you have any interest, and I'd be happy to work up a proposal. Take all the time you need to discuss with your family. Consider the attached a thank you for introducing me to Bayside Lotions and Potion products. All the best, Sonya McTavish.
And then you know what happens? I think that character is mentioned once, maybe twice in passing, where the son emails and is like, hey, my mom said it's a go. And then she makes the social media and it turns out good. I'm talking maybe 4 sentences max. I'm not going to go looking for it, but I can say with confidence, I'm pretty sure we get maybe 4 sentences max of this character. But we do get a full email in a different font that we get to read in great detail, but we do not get to see anything from Marianne Poole's diary, one of the brides whose rings we're trying to rescue. And you want to know what that didn't have anything to do with? That didn't have anything to do with the core mystery of this story, and it just happened again and again and again and again and again this entire series, and that is so frustrating because what Nora Roberts did here was an interesting concept. If this series was about what it actually says it's supposed to be about, a woman who inherits a haunted Victorian mansion and then has to break the curse by an evil witch woman and release the souls of 7 brides who were murdered there in a place called Lost Bride Manor. That is a really cool concept, and there are a handful, there are a couple of good, solid, spooky scenes in there, and the actual ending, like the concept of the ending, with her having to go back into time through this mirror that she's had to go through, and she saw all these visions and get the rings before Hester Dobbs did and set all of these women free, and she gets to see them at the end, and they're like, may we stay in the manor if we choose, and she's like, of course, this is your house as much as mine, which means that all the kind ghosts that she's become friends with, little Jack and Molly the maid and like Colin Poole and all of the brides who wanted to be mistress there for so long but their time was cut short, they now get to be happy and together, and Sonya sees them at her wedding as she walks up to marry Trey, the first bride who won't die. Like, there is the bones of a decent story in here. This book feels like the publishers knew that Nora Roberts, Prince Gold, that she has established herself with over 300 something books as someone who writes books people are willing to read, and I don't think they're keeping a very close eye on what is actually getting written anymore. Now, and I don't mean that to sound mean or anything or rude. It's just clearly Nora Roberts can come up with ideas and write books that people want to read. And that is an incredible skill to have the career that Nora Roberts has and to have the impact and the just shelf space in any library you walk into. She has created a legacy for herself. She's like all of those. She's like Patterson. She's like, she's like Clive Cussler, where you walk into a library and you just see a wall of the same author. What's that lady's name? Editing Summer, you know who I'm talking about. Figure out the name and say it. Danielle Steele. There are authors who do that, and it's super impressive. So I'm not saying anything against Nora Roberts as an author. Because what have I done? I haven't written anything yet. I'm in the process of it, but like, there are people who have the skill to write stories that people are going to read, and Nora Roberts clearly has that. There is a cool concept here, and she just didn't seem to want to actually commit to that concept. I have a theory that she didn't even write this book, that it was a 30-something-year-old millennial, because of the nature of the jokes and the like slang that was used and the way that the person talks. Like, and I say that as a 30-year-old millennial. I am Sonya McTavish, essentially. I am a 33-year-old woman who does freelance graphic design, and I would love to live in a Victorian mansion. There is a lot of similarities between me and the main character here, and I just don't think that someone who's been writing books since the 80s could capture so accurately the weird tenor that Tumblr foisted upon all of us. And this person managed to. So that's why I have some suspicions that Nora didn't even write this. But then I had people in my comments be like, no, Nora Roberts always does a ton of research on what are different aspects of a career, and I've always wondered if what she writes is accurate. And the person who was commenting was like, you're the first person who actually has the job that one of the characters has. And so yeah, she nailed it. I felt like I should have been logged into Clockify doing work, because Nora Roberts just kept writing scenes where Sonya was working. And that, how many times am I going to say that's the problem? The thing is, it just feels like Nora Roberts had a cool idea, but she didn't want to write a haunted house book. She didn't want to write a book that was scary. The opening, like, intro chapter, like, prologue in each of the books feel like they try to read like Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House, like the opening paragraph of Haunting of Hill House, where it's like, Hill House stood for 80 years, it would stand for 80 more. Inside, the doors were firm, bricks lay neatly, the floors were sound, or whatever, and whatever walks there walks alone. We all know what I'm talking about. We all know, we're familiar. They tried to have that tone at the beginning, and then the book is just about graphic design, the power of friendship, looking at furniture, and cooking meals and becoming better at cooking meals, and then kissing their boyfriends. The girls who live in the house kissing their boyfriends, and then sometimes kissing somebody who isn't your boyfriend. I just feel it's thank you. I think I've spent my ire. I'll let Summer at the computer take back over, but I've finished reading Nora Roberts' The Seven Rings, and it made me frustrated, because it was frustrating because it never got to the point. And you could say, Summer, you said the same thing like 5 times just now. Pot calling the kettle black. And I say, sure. We're both hypocrites here. I filmed a 15-minute outro that my computer is now telling me does not have sound, when I know it does, because I play it in something else and it does have sound. But when I put it in Premiere, it says it does not have sound. And I'm gonna just give up. I'm gonna give up. Because this was 3 hours long, and I'm sorry. I have no excuse other than I was in a battle of wills with Nora Roberts' Seven Rings, 3rd book in the Lost Bride trilogy, and I won. But at what cost? The cost is 3+ hours of your time and 3 months worth of emotional weight on me, as I kept being like, Summer, this was supposed to take you a week. Why is this taking so long? Summer, this was supposed to be done months ago. You are 4 videos behind on your perfect YouTube schedule that you made for yourself. Summer, what is wrong with you? And I had to say to myself, hey, I am just one woman, and I've got a lot going on right now. And so with that, and with no moral conclusion to this, I'm just going to say thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this haunted house graphic design themed odyssey that I went on. And it shall go down in the annals of my personal history as what I created during my wedding planning season. I'm going to do my best to make a couple more videos before the wedding, but I'm not making any promises to you or myself. I have an idea. I have a thought that I think is much more realistic than what I originally had planned for myself. I have a plan that seems a little bit more reasonable, so hopefully I'll be able to post some more. But if you guys do not see me until after May, as a wife, that might just be the case. I'm gonna do my best. I am going to try. But I hope this 3-hour-long video will tide you over, my beautiful children, my beautiful babies. So sorry I starved you for so long. Feast now upon this epic. Like and subscribe if you'd like more of this. Not of this exactly. I don't think I'm ever going to do a reading vlog style again, or at least I'm not going to do it till I have time to seriously assess my plan of action for how I'm going to film this, because this is outrageous and I shan't ever dance this dance again. But stuff where I talk in depth about books and movies and break down plots and give my thoughts and feelings for a long time about stuff. Like, that's my brand. My brand. Anyway, like and subscribe if you had a nice time. Leave a comment if you made it to the end, or really even just make a comment if you didn't make it to the end. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on Nora Roberts' Lost Bride Trilogy, The Seven Rings. Tell me your thoughts about a book you read. Tell me your thoughts on any books you'd recommend me to read. That feels dangerous right now, but feel free to throw them at me. I might give them a whirl. No promises. No promises, especially right now, but I may. But anyway, sorry. Like, subscribe, comment, call to action. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Jesus loves you. Okay, thanks.